I am Charmel McMillan, and this is my 159th episode of Just One Thing, my show about life-changing moments, the journey, the things that shape who we are destined to be, the way God kind of orchestrates, everything as it's supposed to be, so we make the impact that we're designed to make in life. And that's what it's all about, I believe. This show is titled after my best-selling book of the same name, Just One Thing, foreword by my longtime friend, Mike Epps. 27 years we've been friends. And so I thank him for his continuous support and all my friends who have, helped propel this book into being a bestseller and selling out 4 times nationally. My guest tonight is a spokesperson, HIV activist, and educator. I met her, I believe, through my friend, super talented nephew of the multi-platinum legend, Teddy Riley, Devontae Riley, introduced us. And so welcome to everyone. I don't do a lot of shout outs during the interview because I try to focus on my guests, but I see you all. I thank you for joining us. Stay tuned because we're going to have a Q&A if she's up to it after her voice is up to it afterwards, and invite a couple people on to ask questions and, engage, and she can continue to educate after she tells her story and we talk about her life. So that's what we're going to do. Welcome, Renee Lady Burgess. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Yes.
Good. Good. Well, it is a pleasure and a blessing to have you. I always start off my conversations talking about the formative years. And so tonight's going to be no different because, there's a full life before, we start to make our impact. So where are you from? Where are you born? All of that. Where'd you grow up?
All right. So where I currently reside right now is where I was born and raised. And
Okay.
that is Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay. Another Jacksonville. I had Jacksonville the other day on here.
Yeah. So born and raised here in Jacksonville, Florida. I came from a 2-parent household. They're still married. Actually, their wedding anniversary is this month, 48 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I only have one sibling, an older brother.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, my growing up background was pretty much raised in church. I was in church 7 days a week. If it was 8 days a week, I would have been in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at, where I reside. I've lived other places, but being that my parents are older now, it kind of just brought me back here. So, to help and do everything I need to do,
Right.
as they get older.
So I wanted to ask you, you told me about your childhood. You were in church 8, 9, 10 days a week. I was too. And I wanted to ask you also, like, what did you think you wanted to be when you grew up?
Oh, I knew. So early on, the first thing I said was I want to be a teacher.
Okay.
That was like elementary school.
Uh-huh.
Then as I moved into like middle school, I want to be a doctor.
Wow.
At that point. Then I decided 8th grade, I wanted to get in beginner's band.
You all over the place.
Right. So then I started playing musical instruments, clarinet, saxophone, percussion. And at that point, when I go to college, I'm majoring in music. I want to be a band director.
Okay.
And so now when I look back on it, I'm like, even though I had all those thoughts, even with what I do now, I'm still doing it. I'm teaching because I'm educating.
Yeah, exactly.
I am like, I'm back in school now to become a doctor.
Okay.
And I still love music. It's still a part of my life. No matter what I'm doing, music is there.
Okay.
So yeah.
So did you go to college back then? Are you going to college now, or what was the education progression?
So I actually graduated high school in the 11th grade. So I only spent 3 years in high school. 11th grade, they said, "Listen, you have enough credits to graduate this year." Okay, I was out of there. I was kind of that kid. I guess because I graduated at like 16 or 17, I kind of didn't go straight to college. I was tired of school. I was burnt out. And so I didn't start like going for my associate's degree until 2 years later. And then once I did that, I ended up having my oldest daughter, who's now 19. So I
Okay.
stopped. And
Okay.
so had my oldest daughter, went through this whole process that we're going to talk about in this whole situation.
Okay.
And then 3 years after all of this stuff unfolded, I went back to school, got my associate's degree. And so currently right now, I'm a junior in college.
Okay.
I'm like a last year junior,
Mm-hmm.
going into senior year. So, and I'm just taking it. I'm not like, school is there, so I'm not
Mm-hmm.
rushing it, taking my time,
Okay.
all of that. So, yeah.
So I want to ask you, what was dating and relationships like before you got married? Before we start talking about all of that, what were dating and relationships like for you before you got married? Because you come from a traditional family, you got mom and dad still married, you grew up in the
Right.
church, you had all these aspirations, super talented, little baby genius, graduated 11th grade. What was your view of life and relationships before you got married?
So, as a kid, sitting in this church every Sunday or every day,
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing my wedding in this church. As a
Mm-hmm.
teenager, as you get older, oh, I'm gonna get married. Oh, I'm gonna have this many bridesmaids, this, my, like, I'm picturing everything. I'm on church program, my whole wedding plan,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Right.
And it's always been like, I want to get married, then have kids. I was very traditional. Didn't turn
Okay.
out that way, but that's how I was brought up.
Okay.
My grandparents were married. They literally had 14 kids.
Wow.
A husband and wife with 14 kids that were all their kids. And then,
Okay.
my parents being married, seeing so many people around me having that. You don't
Mm-hmm.
really see it now, but
Yeah.
20th century, it was very there, very relevant, and very happening. So
Yeah.
that's what I longed for. So my dating was very traditional. I was not sexually active. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I did, first time I did ever have sex, I was 14. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
knew it. I didn't never tell my business. My
Okay.
parents didn't even know
Mm-hmm.
until a couple years ago, the
Mm-hmm.
first time.
Right.
And so I was very traditional with it. The second
Mm-hmm.
time I had ever had sex, guess what? That's when my 19-year-old daughter was conceived. So
Okay.
it
Okay.
was
So she
like,
was conceived before you got married, correct?
right, because she was
Okay.
3
Got
years
you.
old when I got married. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I literally was that person. Like, I wasn't sexually active. I did have a zero tolerance. So that was probably the Taurus in me at that point.
Mm-hmm. My
Zero
brother's a Taurus.
tolerance.
He's May
So
5th.
yeah, so if a relationship or dating didn't seem right, I would
Mm-hmm.
kind of just leave it there and say, you know what, this is not going to work. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just go separate ways. So that's kind of the type of person I was with dating and relationships. I wasn't really just all over the place and all out there.
Okay. So you also probably had discernment because you grew up in church. Came up from such a
Yeah.
traditional family, instilling spiritual values in you. And I think that besides being a Taurus, that let it go was discernment. Like, this ain't it. This ain't
Yeah,
it. And
exactly.
so I wanted to ask you, you know, once you had your first daughter, and I guess you inadvertently met your husband or future husband, how did you guys meet? How did you all start dating, or what
So
was the progression into getting married?
I literally met him the Saturday before I gave birth to my daughter that Monday.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that soon. So I met him at his mother's house. His
Mm-hmm.
mother was at that time, she was a friend of our family. So she
Mm-hmm.
had a Labor Day event that weekend. Her son came in. Now I had known his mom for like a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I had never met her son because he lived in South Carolina. And
Okay.
so he just happened to be there and she introduced us. Again, I'm pregnant. It wasn't her
Mm-hmm.
introducing us as, to meet each other to date. It was
Yeah,
just,
just
hey, this
she's
is
a
my
family
son.
friend, and
Yeah,
this is her son.
right. And so he and I actually connected as far as friend wise. We connected, we
Okay.
had fun, we were talking at the party. He was like, oh, you about to pop in a minute. Yeah, probably, things
Right.
like that. And
Mm-hmm.
he had a girlfriend at the time. I met her, she was there. Like, so it was nothing malicious or intentional about it. It was just us meeting. And
Mm-hmm.
then you know, we didn't start dating for maybe 2 years after we met.
Okay.
And, you know, so that's kind of how we were introduced to each other.
So you had a long dating process, and then he pops the question, did you have that dream wedding that you wanted?
Well, so he didn't actually pop the question.
Oh, okay.
So, because so we were friends for about 2 years.
Okay.
Then once we started dating and got into a serious relationship, that was probably going on close to like almost 2 years.
Okay.
We sat down and we had a conversation. He had been married previously.
Okay.
I had never been married. He was older than me at the time. You know, he's older than me. And so we talked about it. I've always, because I was around so much marriage, like my parents, they graduated high school in 72. They were married in 74. So my thing was, I want to be like, I was always, in a sense, inadvertently prepared for it. Like, I wasn't partying. I wasn't, you know, the things that they do now at 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, I wasn't doing. I was ready to be someone's wife, have a household, have kids. I was like that. And so we talked about it, and we just came to a thing and said, let's get married. So there was never a formal proposal or anything that took place.
So during your 2 years of dating, and he's courting, he's doing, I assume, the traditional stuff, y'all becoming best of friends, that's your hang partner. Did anything in your spirit say, this isn't it?
No, everything told me the complete opposite.
Wow.
This is it. Like, this is my person. Like, he was older than me, but everybody my whole life has told me I had an old soul.
Okay.
Like, and again, it all falls back to my background. I'm in this church with all these old people. You know?
Right. I understand.
So I had no choice. You know, my mom was the youngest girl out of 14 kids. She was the 12th child. So all of my cousins, like right now, I'm 39. They're all over 50 now. All of my first cousins. And their kids are my age.
Right.
So I was always around older people. So I picked up the things from everybody around me. And so it was just, we connected on every level. And so it just felt natural. It felt like, okay, yeah, this is it. You know?
Wow. So did you have the wedding? You've been sitting in church since you were a little girl planning?
We did. We had the wedding. It was August 4th, 2007. We had, you know, I had my best friend as my maid of honor, because we always said we get married. I'm her girl, she my girl.
Right.
I had a couple other people in the wedding, including one of his daughters. Well, actually, no, both of his daughters. I had the songs I wanted. One of my cousins, she sang in this group, this R&B group called Pure Soul. They were a 90s group. So so they had the song "We Must Be in Love."
Yeah.
And, like, when that song came out, I was like, cousin, this is my way. I'm walking down the aisle to this song. And that's what I did. That was my song. And then, of course, Medea Family Reunion came out. Johnny Gill started singing "You for Me." That was my song. That was our song. I can't listen to it now because it just pissed me off when I hear the song. But, you know, all of that, everything that we planned, how it was, the father-daughter dance, me and my dad dancing to our favorite song, which is Heat Wave, Always and Forever. So,
yes, I love that song.
Like, it was what, you know, I had always envisioned.
Wow. So when you first got married, did you enjoy it? What was married life like when you first got married?
I loved it. So now I did step out of the traditions a little bit. So because I had never lived with anyone but my parents, a thing that we discussed was me moving there prior to the wedding.
Okay.
Because I had never lived with somebody, I wanted to make sure, if I'm making this lifelong commitment, am I really going to be able to deal with, you know, how you are at home? You know, if he
now you left Jacksonville to go be with him.
Right. And I already knew how he was just being around him. He's a very neat person. Like, we both had the same OCD things in common. If it has a place, put it in its place. Things like that.
Right.
And so everything was like almost picture perfect. Like, you know, it was comfortable. We just clicked. And so, So we did live together before we got married, and I was
Okay.
able to just experience that part of it. But
Okay.
yeah, once the marriage happened, everything was good. I was enrolled in college,
Mm-hmm.
at the University of South Carolina in upstate in Spartanburg,
Okay.
and I was working a third shift job. He was working, and it was fine. I would
Mm-hmm.
cook, he would cook, whatever we did, it, and it was never any issues.
So when did things take a turn in your marriage? How far into the marriage did things take a turn? And how did you find out things were taking a turn?
So everything started taking a turn once I found out that I was pregnant.
Okay.
So we got married August 4th of 2007. I
Mm-hmm.
found out I was pregnant the end of October, going into November.
Okay.
And went, did what I supposed to do, called OBGYN, scheduled my appointment. We went in to did the history and physical stuff they ask you about, family history, did blood labs and everything. And then, we went on about our day. And then I started getting pregnancy symptoms, the nausea, the vomiting, and
Mm-hmm.
not being able to keep my food down. And I got extremely dehydrated.
Mm-hmm.
And I got extremely dehydrated, and I had to call my doctor. So here it now is November 21st, the day before Thanksgiving of that year. I'm in the doctor's office, and that's the day that everything changed.
Wow. So when you went to the doctor, or you called the doctor, what happened?
We went in.
Okay.
Because he
He went
looked me
with
up.
you?
Yeah, he was with me because he had to drive me. I had to get IV fluids, nausea medicine, and my IV things like that. So he was there with me.
Okay. So what happened?
So the doctor came in, and she asked both of us, is it okay if I ask your husband to step out of the room? I just want to talk to you alone by yourself, and then we can bring him back in. That wasn't unusual for me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes doctors do want to talk to the patients by themselves.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
so he stepped out. She comes back in, and she says, well, I got your labs back and everything's okay with the labs, except one thing. Now, with my pregnancy with my oldest daughter, I was a gestational diabetic. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking she's going to tell me my glucose is high, things of that, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what I got to deal with.
Right.
And no, she tells me that, well, your labs came back and they said that you're HIV positive. And so when she told me that, I
Mm-hmm.
kind of just got numb. I just stared at the wall. I
Mm-hmm.
had no reaction. I was just
Right.
numb.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, well, do you want me to tell your husband, or do you want to tell him? I say, well, you tell him. I say, because if you're telling me I'm HIV positive, then he's the reason why I'm HIV positive.
Wow. So at this point, did you know you were pregnant with twins?
I didn't.
Okay. Okay.
This was before we had even had the first ultrasound.
Oh, wow.
We didn't find out until that following Monday, when I
Mm-hmm.
had the first ultrasound, that it was twins.
Wow. So did the doctor bring him back into the office where you were sitting, or she went and talked to him alone?
No, she brought him back in because he was just stood. She told him to stand right outside the door. So she
Okay.
brought him back in, and she told them, and his reaction was not the reaction I was expecting. His reaction was, oh, we'll get through this. We'll work this out. Like, that was his reaction. Yeah. And at that moment, like I always tell my followers, and when I'm educating people and talking to them,
Mm-hmm.
in that moment, you know how you have, they say, like, sometimes when you have a near-death experience, your life flashes
Mm-hmm.
before your eyes.
Right.
So it wasn't that my life flashed before my eyes, but so many red flags that were missed, like, flashed before my eyes. There were so many things that happened prior to us getting married that I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, it just all made sense. It just really all made sense. There were so many things that transpired prior to that.
Is there something you could say what happened, like the
Oh
red flags?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Because I mean, I
So,
was like, did anything in your soul feel different? But sometimes no, seriously, I said this. I have a relationship show called "It Is What It Is: How Men Think." It's all men talking love life relationships. And one of my guests, who's very well known, said, "Nobody lies to herself more than the woman who really loves you." You know what I mean? And so what I'm
Love is
saying is
blind
love
sometimes.
really is blind, not in you don't see the person, you don't see the obvious because you love them so much and you
Yeah.
want it to work out and you're traditional, your parents are still married. So that clouds vision in all of us in one
Right.
way or another. It really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. And see with him, so I told you I was introduced to him by his
Hmm.
mom. Now,
Hmm.
that was September of 2003. We got
Okay.
married in '07.
Okay.
So to give you that kind of time frame of when I
Okay.
met the
So four
person.
years later.
Right. And so um one of those things that happened was we went and got tested before we got married. We went and had HIV testing done. So yeah, your face like what? So
Because
yeah, we
I
went.
want people to know this is my first time hearing her full story.
It is,
Like
yeah.
when we met, she gave me like the snapshot, and I was like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "But I don't know the full story, so I'm asking questions and listening along with you all." So, okay.
Yeah. So we went and got tested before marriage because I was a phlebotomist and a medical assistant prior to,
Mhm.
changing career paths and things like that. And so I went every year and got tested because I have a high tolerance for pain. Had I at any point gotten stuck by a needle from drawing someone's blood, I probably would have never felt it. And so
Mhm.
I just checked myself yearly because, again, still at that point, I was never sexually active still.
Mhm.
So I knew my status every year. So I say, well, since we're getting married, you have a primary care physician, a family doctor. Let's
Mhm.
go ahead. I'll do my yearly testing and I'll get established as a patient at your doctor's office. So
Okay.
we went to his primary care physician, um, and I let him know, hey, we want to get tested. So
Okay.
I'm in one room getting tested. I'm assuming he's in the other room getting tested. We
Mhm.
do the 2 week wait because at that time there was no quick test for HIV testing and things like that. You got your
Okay.
blood draw, you waited 2 weeks, you got your results.
Mhm.
So we um come back to the doctor. We agreed we would tell each other our results in front of the doctor.
Okay.
So we sat in front of the doctor. I told him my test results are negative. He tells me he's negative. Okay. I trust this man, obviously.
The doctor didn't say anything.
So with the doctors are bound by HIPAA laws and Privacy Act. So when you go to the doctor, there's a sheet that you fill out in your medical initial
Mhm.
forms that says
Right.
who do you want to have third-party information from your medical records.
Mhm.
Whether it's another facility, your parents, a sibling, whoever, guardian, whatever.
Mhm.
If you don't put anyone's name on there, then nobody's obligated to know anything in your medical records.
But I mean, it just,
Yeah.
okay. Somebody asked what we're talking about because there are about 15 people who joined since we started talking. This is Renee Ladybird Burgess. She is sharing her personal testimony and her journey. Long story short, she grew up in a very traditional home, Christian family, went to church every Sunday. Parents still married, had aspirations of falling in love like all of us. And we're talking about what happened when she really entered her first real relationship. They met through a family friend, and became friends, ultimately dated, years later, and ended up getting married, and now we're at the point where they're married. They even, lived together for a little while because they were good friends, and they lived in different states. So she moved where he was to make sure, we're going to be kind. Everything was fine. And they go, I think she's saying before they got married, or they had blood tests at some point. They had blood
Before.
tests, blood work at some point, and they agreed to tell each other their status. She was always getting tested, wasn't sexually active. He's getting, actually I don't know, I guess what he's doing, but they agreed to tell it in front of the doctor. That's where we are right now. And she says I'm negative, which she was before they got married. And he says I'm negative in front of the doctor. So my question becomes, why did the doctor sit there? Like, the doctor need to go to jail too. Like, that to me seems like assisted attempted murder. And I'm not even trying to be dramatic. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, if you know something that could be potentially detrimental to somebody's health and well-being, and you sitting there stone faced, you're just as guilty. Like, there, I know there's Hippocratic oath. I know there's the, you know, the thing we sign off on or whatever, but you sitting there stone faced, knowing someone's standing behind somebody with a gun and they don't know a gun's to their head. What the hell? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. So you're, like you just said, you know, he has that Hippocratic oath and everything that he has to, you know, because honestly, I don't fault the doctor. Yes, I was angry once I found, but I understood, because again, I was a medical assistant myself. So I was bound by that same, you know, oath. I couldn't tell people's medical and personal information. But the doctor did do what he was supposed to do. So while I was in the room getting tested, the doctor had him in the other room saying to him, listen, you know you're HIV positive. You need to tell her. Now, I can allow you to be the one to tell her, or you can give me permission to tell her. Because again, he had to give the doctor permission to tell me, because I was not listed on his medical records. Had I been listed on his medical records, that doctor didn't have to listen to what he said. He could have told me.
So, okay, let me ask this. I know we're going to do a Q&A with you after this, but you're still up to it. But, okay, so I haven't been married. You know what I mean? I've been in long-term relationships, but it's never come down to this. You know what I mean? So is it wise for a woman, you know, if she's getting married, if she's involved with somebody and they're having these pre-blood work things happening, is it wise for her to say, we need to be on each other's medical release forms? You know what I mean?
Right.
And demand to see it in writing.
So prior to marriage, if you guys come to that agreement, then I say do it. But definitely once you married, I don't care. You need to be on his and he need to be on yours, period.
Right.
And that's for anybody.
Yeah. Okay, so the doctor's in there telling him, you need to do the right thing. You need to tell her. And you all click the follow button. If you want to follow both of us, make sure you hit, you can tap Ladybird up there, drop down menu, tap, follow. And so this is the 159th show, and this is Ladybird, Renee Ladybird Burgess. So, okay, he's telling, so what happens after that? Like, so
he tells the doctor, and now this information here, I'm telling you from what the doctor told him. The doctor told this to investigators down the road later on. So that's how I was given that information. So the doctor basically told him, well, you have to tell her, or I'm gonna tell her. So he reassured the doctor that he would tell me. And the doctor trusted him. Because again, this wasn't his new doctor. This is a doctor he had for years, at least 5 years. And so the doctor basically trusted him to tell me. So the doctor didn't find out until the, you know, months later that he didn't tell me. And the doctor honestly was devastated. Like, he was hurt because, and I never spoken to the doctor after that time we got tested to even know like the true emotions of how that doctor felt. But I can only imagine the pain he probably felt knowing that he took this oath. He probably really did want to say something and he just couldn't, because that would have really put him at risk for a lawsuit and losing his license, so many things that would have taken place to the doctor. So that's why I say, because I personally understand and have taken that oath before, I understood, and I really couldn't be angry at the doctor. So yeah, so that was one time that flashed back to my mind and was like, okay, so that's what was happening. You know, once I found that out, it's like, okay, so, because I couldn't understand then. I'm like, well, we went and got tested. We was both negative. How? And
okay,
then
so you look back at that, but okay, the mother, I want to ask you this in retrospect. So, did she know that her son?
So, you're sitting down.
I mean, y'all making me hot. I'm serious. I've never heard this story before. You gave me, please tell them you gave me a flashcard when we were live with my friend who introduced us. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, that's interesting. I'll have you on. And that was months ago. So all I got was like, seriously, like a 2-sentence thing. Like, this would happen to me. And I don't know any of this stuff. And I'm like, so did the mama know?
So listen, so his mother, she knew. So she knew. So remember I told you I met him September of 03. He
Mm-hmm.
was actually diagnosed and told his status August of 2002. So the year prior, you know, and I don't think when his mom introduced us initially that she thought that at some point we would be dating down the road. And then she initially didn't even know we were dating. Like, it was a thing that he and I were just being adults. It wasn't like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we're going to tell your mama, we're going to tell you. Like, we were just being
Mm-hmm.
adults and whatever. And then
Right.
eventually they found out that we were in a serious relationship. And still, but the thing was, once we said, okay, we're getting married, we're going through these things, his mom was taking me out to breakfast, lunch, dinner, different things. You know, I would go over her house. She would, you know, just always around me all the time. So she had plenty of opportunities. She could have said something. Now, this was the other thing that flashed up for me with her.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment when they told me my status and told me in that room, the other
Mm-hmm.
thing that popped up. So 2 days before the wedding. Now, I'm going to tell you, I get a lot of backlash for this because people try to tell me that, like, they try to tell me, and I'm telling them what happened. They try to
Mm-hmm.
tell me that his mama tried to tell you. Now, there's one thing to try to tell somebody something,
Mm-hmm.
and there's
Yeah.
another thing to not do that. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like what she did, she could have done more.
Right.
So 2 days before the wedding, we come from South Carolina here to Jacksonville for the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to her house.
Okay.
She pulls me into her garage and she says to me, I just want to ask you a question. I'm like, okay, sure. She was like, has Gregory ever said anything to you about HIV? And I looked at her, I was like, no, why are you asking me that? You know, because in my head, I know we went and got tested. We both said we was negative.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why are you asking me that? Well, she was like, well, just ask him. Go ask him about HIV. She didn't say, oh, my son got HIV. Did he tell you? You like, she didn't ask.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't that direct. She was just like, well, go ask him. So being the type of person I am, that Taurus,
Mm-hmm.
I told her, I said, well, you stay right here. I went in the house. I got him out of the house, brought him to the garage. So here go all three of us right here together.
Okay.
In his mama face, I look at him and I say, your mama just told me to ask you about HIV. What is she talking about? He looked at me, he looked at his mama, and he said with the utmost confidence, I don't know what she's talking about. I don't even know why she told you to ask me something like that. Mom, why are you telling her to ask me something like that? You know what his mama did? Can you guess what she did?
Tell me she didn't stick by her son.
She ain't say nothing. She didn't part her lips. She ain't flinch. She ain't fart. She ain't slob. She ain't nothing.
That seems criminal too, though, love. It
She
really
did.
does.
Oh
Because
yeah.
she knew she ain't signed no oath. She ain't no doctor. She
Yeah.
knew and
And
didn't say
she
anything.
knew. She didn't say nothing. So at that point, he's standing there calling his mama a liar to her face. Not one time did she open her mouth and say, I'm not lying. You need to tell the truth. She ain't do none of that. So what am I to assume right at that moment? Am I
Right.
to assume his mama is lying or he
Mm-hmm.
lying? If she
Right.
had opened her mouth and said any little simple, like anything,
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't have got married and I would have immediately did whatever, because at that point, he and I had never had unprotected sex. We didn't have,
Wow.
we had sex prior to marriage. It was never unprotected. And
Wow.
we only had unprotected sex starting on our wedding night.
Jesus.
So had she said something to me, then
Mm-hmm.
I would have probably not got married. I would have really insisted on him being truthful with me and, you know, and really forcing the issue. But because she didn't open her mouth, all I could assume is that she was lying. Maybe something came up and she decided she just wanted to tell them wedding them. But you know,
Mm-hmm.
and she had a history of being a liar. So
Wow.
it wasn't that I was just assuming things. I personally knew that she had a history of being a liar, because there was stuff that she was lying to other people about, that because I was around her so much, I saw it with my own eyes.
Wow.
So in my head, I'm like, how do I know she, like, who telling, like, and it was a fast moment. Of course, it's 2 days before the wedding.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
you know, like I say, had she seriously opened her mouth,
Yes. Even when you could have him confront her, if she had been a woman and said, you know what I'm talking about, tell her the truth. I mean, just so you don't go straight to hell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just for that principle, you know. And let me say this, we're going to have, I see some of your questions popping up under the question thing. We're going to do a Q&A after we finish the interview and allow her to tell her story in its entirety. So if you don't mind sticking with us, we'll open up the Q&A after the interview. But I want her to be able to tell her story in her own words without, you know, the extra questions. And we'll answer all your questions at the end, or as many as she's able to answer, you know, feeling well. She had a little sore throat today. Okay, so I wanted to know, okay, so you're looking back at some of the red flags that happened before you got married, and didn't realize they were red flags. So the mom is disingenuous, she's kind of fake, doesn't tell the truth, if we're being honest, you know. And he lied in front of his doctor when you all had the premarital blood tests and things of that nature, trying to make sure everything's good. You had protected sex before marriage, leading up to your wedding night, you know, and you know, being, you know, a responsible adult, but in love nonetheless. And then he's known for 4 years or more, 5 years almost, that he's HIV positive and doesn't say anything to you. So now, fast forward back, was there any other red flags that you wanted to mention before I go back to the day at the doctor's office?
Okay, hold on, let me tell you. Michaela, what? I'm doing an interview, so my daughter just got home from work. Sorry.
Okay.
Fire her! Wanted to make sure she knew, so she won't be on the phone loud.
Okay.
So we're at the doctor's office, and you know, the doctors told me this. So we get in the car. As soon as we get in the car, we sit there again. I'm alert, but because they give me nausea medicine, these IV fluids, I'm kind of not in it. So he looks over at me and he says, don't tell anybody. And I say, what do you mean, don't tell anybody? Well, we'll just figure this out. So again, here's this other part that's telling me, okay, yeah, he knew. He definitely knew. He's telling me not to tell anybody. He's just nonchalant about it. He ain't acting like any other person would have been like, what? Like they would have been like in an uproar about it. He wasn't. He was calm, mood, mellow, like all that. And so for weeks, I didn't say anything to anybody. My mom had came for Thanksgiving that year. So the very next day was Thanksgiving. She was there. We left the doctor. I got home, went in the room, closed the door. I just laid in the bed. I didn't talk to anybody really.
Did he sleep with you that night? Could you be near him that night after finding out all that information?
I mean, at that point, I had to kind of really still just act like nothing had happened at the doctor's office.
I can't even imagine that stress.
Yeah, and so we were still sleeping in the same bed at that point. You know, and it got to a point where I still hadn't told nobody. So here we are, probably the first or second week into December, and I break down. Break down, crying. I'm driving to work, and I just called my mom, and I was like crying, and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I just told her everything. The doctor said, and you know, she's in Florida, I'm in South Carolina. She's crying, and the only thing she kept just saying over and over is, "Why didn't you tell me why I was there so I could hold you?" Now, I knew why I didn't tell her why she was there, because number one, it was still fresh to me, but number two, my mom is like,
she would have killed him. She ain't gonna hold you. She would have killed him.
My aunt was with her too. My aunt came with my mom. So I was like, you know, one thing about me, I always think before I speak. So I
like your mama. She said, "Why didn't you tell me so I could hold you?" She knows she would have killed him.
I knew that was one thing. Like why she was there. No. So I feel like everything kind of fell in place of how and when I told her. So she asked me, "Well, what are you gonna do?" And at this point, you know, he's still kind of hovering around me. He's still kind of seeing if I'm, you know, how I'm reacting to all this information I just got. So I just made a choice. I needed to get away from him. So I said, I'm just going to go to Florida for, a couple weeks, probably come back after Christmas. I didn't even want to be there for Christmas.
Right.
And so I left, came to Florida, and I went back 2 days after Christmas. Now, through that whole process of me getting away from him, really having time to focus and think about what all took place. And again, still being pregnant,
with twins.
Yep, because I found out at that point it was twins. And I went through every emotion you could think of.
Right.
Until I finally got to, the emotion of, you know what, I can't stay. I knew I didn't want to stay with him. Yeah, we had just got married, because I kept going through my head, okay, maybe we can, maybe I could forgive him. I'm going back to that whole Christian background. Maybe I could forgive him. Maybe I could, just thinking of ways that I could, we just got married. There were a lot of people who already felt like I was marrying an older man for his money. Like, just a lot of different weird
How much older was he than you?
So when we got married, I was 24 and he was 37.
Okay, he was significantly older.
Right, but then again, when I first met him, when I first met him, he was younger. He was like 32.
Right, but that would have put you even much younger. What were you, 19?
Yeah, I was
20. Okay, yeah. I was going to say 19, 20, but okay, yeah.
I was 20. So, and I had always dated older guys anyway. Even though I wasn't sexually active, I still dated older guys because my mindset was always older.
I got you.
But yeah, so I left. I said, okay, 2 days after Christmas, I went back. Now, we had paid for his sister to come there for Christmas and spend time with us for Christmas.
Okay.
And so I got back the day before she was leaving. So I only got to see her that day, And she did kind of act weird. I didn't find out till later why she was kind of acting a little weird. But she didn't know his status either. So I put that out there now. She didn't even know his status until I told her. So
why would she have been acting weird?
So, I'm gonna get to that. But
okay, so, I won't rush you. Go ahead.
So when I got back those 2 days, that's when I got back around him, and I went through all those emotions. Now I was at rage. I was at a rage emotion.
Yeah.
Every time I looked at him, I frowned. I felt angry. I wanted to do whatever I could to this man to make him hurt.
Wow.
And so one day we were in the car. I was driving, going to the store to get groceries. And again, this is a short period of time from December 26th. This happened between the 27th and the 31st of December. So we went to the store, and I just start busting out laughing, because again, I'm at rage. Somebody crazy as hell, they laugh.
So delirium is setting in too.
Yes. So I just bust out laughing, and he looking around like, what you saw funny or something? I said, I ain't seen nothing funny. I just thought of a new way to kill you today. That's what I told him. And so once I told him that, from the time I actually officially left, that's when he stopped sleeping in the same room as me. He slept on the sofa.
He did.
He slept on the sofa. If I got up in the middle of the night to go to the kitchen, he looking over the arm of the sofa, see what I'm doing. Like, he was paranoid at this point. So I knew when I got to this point, I knew it was time for me to go. Yeah. So I called my cousin who I had met for the first time when I moved there. I called my friend who I'd known for years prior to even knowing him. And I said, hey, this is what's going on. I told them the situation. They did a little crying. I was like, listen, I need y'all to stop crying. We got to move this stuff. So we had a pickup truck, my SUV, my cousin's car, and we moving furniture because I moved all of my stuff out. Whatever was his, I left it. Moved everything out and took it to my friend's house. Whatever I didn't take back with me to Florida, I left it at her house. Came back later with a U-Haul and got it. And so he got home that morning. This is December 31st. Because we waited till he went back to work. He worked third shift too. Waited for him to go back to work. Moved everything overnight. So that next morning, New Year's Day.
So he didn't know you were leaving?
No. I purposely didn't tell him I was leaving because I didn't want him to try to stop me.
Right. So, I got you.
Yeah. And so we I knew when he got home the next morning and walked in the house, initially he wasn't going to notice stuff missing. Because the stuff that was left was right there was his stuff. But once he go in that bedroom, the whole bedroom suit gone. You know,
oh, wow.
all this, you know, everything gone. My mama bought that bedroom suit. Is mad.
I know that's right.
My parents
Yes,
bought it.
ma'am.
So he called my phone. And I'm thinking when I answer the phone, he going to say, what's going on? First thing he asked me, because remember, I took everything I came into that marriage and relationship with me. So the first thing he said when I answered the phone was, why you ain't leave me something to cook with in the oven? That's what he wanted to know. He didn't want to know where I was at and what's going on and why I left. He asked me why I ain't cook. I said, you know what? I hung the phone up. Got myself together, got back on the road. So here it is now, probably end of January, mid-January. My aunt calls me. I'm at my parents' house, still pregnant. My aunt calls me. She's like, turn on the news, turn on the news. So I look on the news. There's a case on the news where there's a homosexual couple. The older man had knowingly infected the younger man, and they sentenced him to 5 years in prison for knowingly infecting the younger guy with the HIV virus. So my aunt was like, isn't that what happened? I was like, yeah. I said, but I was married. Is it really a crime? So she was like, well, you won't know unless you find out. So I called the sheriff's, the sex crimes unit at the sheriff's office, and I talked to the detective. I'll never forget his name, Detective Futch. I talked to Detective Futch. I told him what was going on. He said, it's a crime. Married or not, if he did not tell you before you got married, like out his own mouth, then it's a crime. So I said, well, what do I need to do? He told me I had to file a police report. At that point, nobody still doesn't know my status but a handful of people.
Okay, and just your family and maybe close friends.
Just my immediate family, my best friend, you know, just probably maybe 10 people at this point.
Okay, got you.
I didn't want to just talk to any police officer. I knew officers, so one of the officers, I always braided his little girl's hair. So I called him. I say, listen, I need to file a police report. Again, I had not told him what the situation was. So he comes over to the house. He takes the police report. And I forgot I had not told him anything. And as I'm going through telling him, I'm noticing he stops writing. And I look up and he's crying. Because again, he didn't know. And so I was like, listen, I had to stop and tell him, like, listen, I understand. I said, but let's get through this, and then whatever we need to talk about after we do. So he gets the police report done. They get it done. They start investigating. So investigation involves them, you know, reaching out to the health department and getting subpoenas to get access to records to see if he was ever diagnosed. If he was, then that means he knew his status, you know, things like that. So through this whole process, at this point, I done called his mama. This is when I found out his mama knew. I called his mama, told her what happened. And I actually called her before I left. So I called her between that time frame of me getting that rage moment and leaving, and told her, found out she knew. And then as I've already gone, I said, I'm going to call his sister. Because nobody had called his sister. His mama, now one thing about it, his mama ain't tell nobody.
Right. Oh, she didn't tell nobody.
At this point, nobody still ain't know nothing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I called his sister. I say, you talk to, because the sister has a different mother. I say, you talk to Rhonda? She was like, no, talk to her about what? I said, oh, she ain't tell you what your brother did? No, what did Gregory do? And I told her everything. And she just got quiet, silent. I was like, what? What's going on? What's wrong? She was like, I thought you knew. She was like, I thought you knew. She said, I said, I thought you thought I knew what? She said, so you know about Mary? I was like, who the hell is Mary? Who the hell is Mary? So while I was gone in December and his sister was there for Christmas, he took his sister to meet a woman who had just had a newborn baby from him. And he took his sister to meet the baby. He told his sister that I knew about the baby. and that I was okay with it, and that we was gonna be working on our marriage.
And meanwhile, you pregnant with twins, and for people just catching on, he lied about having HIV during your premarital blood test. You're what, 4 or 5 months pregnant, something like that by then?
Yeah.
And he, during the Christmas break, because you now found out that he's HIV positive, you're HIV positive, he's lying about being HIV positive. The sister comes to visit because y'all paid for her to come. By this time, you're enraged. And he takes her to see another woman who just had a newborn baby with her. So she's infected too, I assume.
The sister didn't know nothing, though. She didn't know.
She didn't know about the AIDS. I mean, I'm sorry, HIV. She didn't know about HIV.
Until he took her. She was like, because she didn't know where they was going. He was like, I want to take you to meet somebody. And so she didn't know nothing until they got to the lady's house. And he got the baby from her. And this is the sister telling me how the situation happened. He got the baby from her and was like, you see the baby? And she looking at the baby like, that baby look like his ass. And she said, is this your baby? And he told her, yeah, this is the baby. You know, this is, and the sister she was like, I was in complete shock. She said she really went off on him after they left the woman's house and was like, what do you mean that's your baby? Do Renee know this? Do she know? Like, she was mad. And that's when he told her, yeah, I knew. But because, of course, I wasn't there. So she didn't know that I didn't know. So when I got there, the way she was acting funny, I guess she didn't know how to say anything to me about it. So she never said anything to me when I got there, because she didn't know how to approach the situation. She just knew, okay, he says she knows, so I'm just going to leave it at that. So when I called her and told her about his HIV status and all this stuff, she was like, well, damn, I wonder if Mary got it. So at this point, we both trying to wonder, damn, I wonder, do Mary got it? Do Mary even know? So, you know, at this point, the police report stuff is still happening. Finally, I get a call on Valentine's Day of 2008 from the detective. He say, listen, we've done all of our investigations. We are ready to arrest him. And the only thing we want to do is get something that's going to be solid, something that's going to stick. I say, what do you need? He said, well, he let me know in Florida, you only need at least one party's consent to record conversation. He said, do you give us consent to record you and him having a conversation? We need something with him acknowledging that he knows his status and that he blatantly didn't tell you. So I say, well, what questions do you need me to ask? So he told me, I wrote the questions down, and I knew he had just got off work. So I say, let me call him, make sure he awake, and then I'll just figure out a way to, like, I'll say, oh, well, let me call you right back or something, get him off the phone just to make sure he's awake, and then I'll get us on a three-way. Okay. So I was on the phone with the detective. Once I knew he was awake, I clicked it through, and I told the detective, I said, once I have him on the phone, just make sure you're recording. And so got him on the phone, talking to him, because at this point, he was wanting me to come home. He's wanting to work on the marriage. He doesn't want me to divorce him, leave him. He's really like wanting me to come home. So at this point, he's willing to answer questions. Because before, now I've asked him these questions before, and I ain't getting no answer. Now you want me to come home, and you want to say this marriage, now you want to answer these questions. So I just told him, I made a little white lie. I say, listen, I got to go see a psychologist, and they're wanting me to, they gave me a list of questions, and they're wanting me to answer these questions. I say, but I asked you these questions, and you will never answer them. I say, and they want to help me. You say you want me to come home, so help me answer these questions. So the questions were, when did you find out you were diagnosed? Why you didn't tell me? Do you know who infected you? And other questions. He answered all the questions. So I said, okay, well, I'll call you back, whatever. Because at this point, I'm still being really cordial with him, because he don't know he don't know I filed charges. He don't know. Right.
Who did he say infected him?
He didn't know. He didn't know where he contracted it from.
Okay.
And so I clicked off the three-way. I say, you got it? The detective said, oh, I got it. So it took them a couple of days. They issued a nationwide warrant for his arrest because he was in another state. So once they did that, South Carolina went to the house. They arrested him, and they say, "Oh, we got a man in our state doing this." So they initiated charges against him with the state of South Carolina. Now, of course, if you know anything about the judicial system, you can't have double jeopardy, meaning you can't be charged for the same crime twice. So they were both attempting to charge him. So it was going to be a matter of what state is going to proceed first. So in South Carolina, for that crime of not knowingly exposing others to the HIV virus, is it's a 10 years in prison. It's a felony crime, and it's a $5,000 fine. In the state of Florida, it's 5 years maximum sentence. So Florida was quick. Florida extradited him from South Carolina. And they brought him here. He initially pleaded not guilty, and they say, "You sure you want to do that?" So when they finally let him know, well, we have this recorded confession, with you letting her know that you knew your status. So at that point, he just say, "I'm guilty." So all he had was a sentencing hearing. There was no need for a trial. So he was sentenced. He spent 6 months in jail before he was sentenced. So he got maximum 5 years. He got 6 months served. He ended up only spending 4 years in prison because he got 6 months good behavior. So he was released from prison March 2012. When he was released from prison. So he did get charged for those crimes. Now, through that whole process, I found out, because of course his sister told me about the woman and her baby. I found out that that woman had got infected from him as well.
Wow.
And then, because now he worked at BMW manufacturing in Greer, South Carolina. This is one of the biggest BMW facilities in the U.S. And they're the ones do like the BM X5, the SUVs. They do a lot of SUVs and some of the cars. And so he had been there for 5 years. He had slept with a lot of people in them 5 years at this facility. So when he got arrested, it was during the shift change that morning on the morning news, while people in the break room and where they have TVs at, his face pops up on the TV. All hell broke loose on the people facility.
My God.
And one lady actually passed out.
She was sleeping with him too?
She had slept with him. She was his first supervisor when he started working there. And she had slept with him. She wasn't with him then, or it had been years prior that she had slept with him and been with him. She had moved on and had another relationship. But of course, if she knew she slept with him, that means she had to go get tested. She had to make sure her partner got tested. Other people saw it. If they slept with him or slept with somebody slept with him, they was getting tested. Now, BMW is one of those facilities where if you get injured on a job or you need to see medic, they have medic on campus. You don't go out off campus. So people were going to medic, and it was lying. My friend called me and said, "Girl, these people lined up." I was like, "How many people?" She was like, she said it had to be about 100 and some people in line waiting just to go get tested. I was like, "Are you serious?" And I had been on the campus before, so I knew what medic looked like. I was like, "Are you serious?" She was like, "Girl, they saw his face on the news." And she told me about the woman passing out. She's like, "It's crazy up here, girl." And so people was going to get tested. And once they found out that it was his wife, because the news kept saying they kept calling me his girlfriend. I called the news like, "No, what you're not finna do is you're not gonna minimize my status of who I was in his life, number one. I was his wife, and people need to know it wasn't a situation of a girlfriend, it was a wife situation." So I called the news myself. I say, the person who wrote the article, "Listen, I know you wrote this article and you thought you was doing well by saying girlfriend, but I'm his wife." And they asked me, "How do you feel about," they was like, "Well, would you like to, come on the news?" I was in Florida, so on the phone and talk. I say, absolutely. I say, because at this point, I have found out that there's possibly hundreds of people that he's infected. So I did the news interview. I don't know if did you see, I posted it on my The news interview I did, I posted it on my Instagram page like maybe 2 days ago.
I saw it in my feed, but I didn't get to see the whole thing.
It has like a Fox News kind of thing.
Okay, I'll go back and look at it.
Yeah, so that interview is the one I did. Well, I'm telling people if they slept with him, they need to go get tested. They need to know their status. And so that prompted people to actually call the sheriff's office to ask questions. So people got so afraid because stigma. If they know my name, they're going to know I slept with him. They're going to know I might have it, assume I got it. So people are really afraid to try to file charges even if they slept with him. Because the thing was, if you can prove you slept with him, like, you could file charges. You didn't have to actually contract the virus. Because it was a thing of him not even telling you he was infected.
Exactly.
But, so one lady actually went through, she did the police report, she filed, but then she backed out. And I knew her because, so through the whole process of me finding this information out, I said, you know what? I feel like I'm going to reach out to some people. So at this point, you done cheated on me. So that means if you done cheated with this person, you probably was cheating with some other people. So back in the day, you know, when you got your phone bill, it was itemized. You got all the phones.
Yes.
So I went on whoever we had at the time, Verizon, I think. And I pulled out the call log for his phone. I called every single number I did not know. And I said, how you doing? My name is such and such. Do you know Gregory Martinez? If you do, all right. I need you. If you ever slept with him, you need to go and get tested because he's HIV positive. I'm his wife, and he's infected me with the virus, and I just found out. And you need to go get tested. And in this conversation of talking to people is when I actually talked to a man. Yeah. if you didn't think things could get any worse. Talk to a man. And this man actually said to me, what you mean you his wife? I didn't even know he liked women. So that was something else that I had added to
Do you have the babies at this point? I'm just trying to get the time frame in my brain.
At this point, I was still pregnant. So I'm dealing with all of this.
My God.
I'm still pregnant. The everything. I'm still pregnant. And I ended up, so when I became one day from being 6 months pregnant, so 23 weeks and 6 days pregnant, I was on bed rest already. They put me on bed rest because I was high risk with because I had a thin cervix, and so I was on bed rest. Had nothing to do with my virus or nothing. My water broke on bed rest, so my twins were born literally 3 to 4 months early.
Oh wow!
And so, on top of dealing with a new diagnosis, dealing with filing the charges, all of that stuff, I also had to deal with being at the hospital in the NICU every day with them, you know, going through the point of the doctors telling me at one point my son might not live. I need to pull the plug on him, all kind of different things that was going on. All of this.
My God.
And, you know, so it just became, you know, and even while I was still pregnant, I was going to a support group and was asked while I was still pregnant in the support group if I wouldn't mind sharing my story and what I had went through at that point with a group of pregnant women who were at risk, or some of them possibly could have been infected. And I did. That was my first time ever talking. I was still pregnant, still new, fresh. And I stood in front of these women and I told them what happened up until that point. Because again, this is still like February or early March before the kids were born. Because they were born in March. So, you know, dealing with all of that. Yeah.
That's a lot. I mean, it's a lot being pregnant. It's a lot, you know, being the lies, the deception from, you know, from his mom, you know, from the shocker with the sister who seemed to care, but didn't know you didn't know, you know, and, you know, the other woman having a baby while you're pregnant with twins, and him standing before the doctor lying. I mean, all of this mentally is like crazy. I mean, and like just thinking back, because him lying in front of the doctor about his HIV status was beforehand, but all this stuff is playing back in your mind. Now you
Right.
rethinking your steps. Now you on the phone after 100 people stand in line at his job once he's on the news and being prosecuted for being a sexual deviant, basically infecting people with HIV, knowing his status for 5 years, even prior to meeting you.
Right.
And then you're on the phone calling numbers, and then a man or men are popping up, and you're like, what in the hell? You know what I mean? Like, and you're pregnant with
Right.
twins. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
can't even imagine what must have been going through your mind, your spirit, you know. And I was talking to somebody the other day. Sometimes you go through stuff where you know it was nobody but God keeping you. You know what
Right.
I mean? That you didn't just
Yeah.
collapse.
Absolutely. And then another thing that happened too, the woman that passed out at work.
Mm-hmm.
So she ended up finding out that she did contract the virus from him.
Wow.
And again, she had a boyfriend that she had been with, but this is what, one of those situations where people don't go get tested. So she had never been tested, never knew her status, and had
Wow.
passed the virus to her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to tell him. He had to go get tested, and he had to find out if he had contracted the virus. Um, and but she shut down. She shut down where all she did was went to work, came home. She didn't talk to anybody. She shut her family out, friends out, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was trying to reach out to her and ask her questions because again, she done gave it to the boyfriend.
Right.
He's devastated. This was
Right.
a 44 at the time. This was a 44-year-old man, and she was probably early 40s too. He's devastated. He's trying to get answers from her. She's not
Mm-hmm.
answering the phone. And so he just snapped. And she was working first shift. So the situation happened to where he snapped. He waited outside. She stayed in the house. So just think of like the houses now that have a 2-car garage. And
Mm-hmm.
you got the side of the house. So as she's backing out of her garage to go to work one morning, and it was actually on Mother's Day. It was Mother's Day of 2008. That's the only reason I can remember what day it was, because it was Mother's Day. He's waiting outside of her house for her to back out. And when she backs out, he shoots through the windshield and shoots her through the windshield and kills her. And I didn't find out. I found out like the situation happened that day
Mm-hmm.
because my friend called me. She was like, girl, you remember I told you the woman who passed out? Like, it wasn't even about my ex-husband at the time. It was just,
Mm-hmm.
you remember I told you the woman that passed out? Well, guess what happened? So all we knew at that point was that. So I guess once they arrested him, because he didn't even run, he turned himself in and
Wait, he
everything.
won't kill himself? So he's so
Yeah.
devastated that he kills her,
So
but he
yeah,
doesn't kill himself.
he didn't even run. They didn't have to search for him. He went right to the police station. And once they questioned him and found out, that's when it unfolded. And it was he told them why he did it, because
Mm-hmm.
she found out she slept with this guy and this. So through that whole process, her lawyer was reaching out to, his lawyer found me on social media and reached out to me to ask me questions
Mm-hmm.
about her, about her and
Mm-hmm.
my ex-husband, if I had known about them sleeping together and stuff. And I said to him then, I said, the only thing I know is everybody had said that they knew that they had some type of relationship, whether it was sexual or not. It was known around, and it was made known. And, and the guy told him, he basically snapped. So he ended up getting 40 years. He got sentenced to 40 years in prison for
Mm-hmm.
killing her.
So wait a
And
minute, he got more time than your ex-husband?
for killing her, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I think and honestly, the only reason I think they didn't give him life was technically at 44 years old, 40 years. If you lucky to live those 40 years, you might be 80 something years old when you get out.
Uh-huh.
I think the only reason they really didn't give him life was because the background of what caused him to do what he did was
Okay,
my
so
ex-husband.
I hope I'm not skipping ahead in your story, but your ex-husband, you told us about, I guess, 5 years he was sentenced. He served a little over 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Is that all the time he served?
He served that time, and then for the young lady that actually filed the report and then she stopped, once he got out of prison, the state of South Carolina, when they ran through their court records, saw that case still sitting there, and they actually picked that charge up. Even though she didn't pursue it, the state of South Carolina pursued it, and instead of putting him back in prison, they gave him 2 years probation. So that was like really the only other extra thing that they added on. So, yeah.
So wait, he infected hundreds of people
And these
potentially.
people was too afraid to do anything. Like they were too afraid. So I was really the only one who stood up and at least had him in prison for that period of time. But
What about when South Carolina? Okay, so you said, okay, so when Florida took over, they had the lesser sentence, right?
right.
But you said South Carolina would have put him away for 10 years.
Yeah.
So, but they couldn't file for the same crime. Why
Right.
didn't one file for, one thing, and then the other South Carolina filed for attempted murder? You understand what I mean?
Well, because it's not considered attempted murder.
What is it considered?
It's just a 3rd-degree felony crime.
So he devastated and infected, maybe on the low scale, 40, 50, 60 people, including their significant others. And this man snaps because he's one of the people who got inadvertently infected by that man. And he's in prison still. And this dude is walking around still infecting people.
I don't know if he's still infecting people, but I know that. So during the process of me finding out about the woman and her baby, I was furious. I told him, I had a conversation with him once I found out. I said, either I'm going to get in this car, because at this point, I done found the woman address.
Okay.
I said, either I'm going to get in this car, I'm going to drive to her house myself and knock on her door. Or you could get in the car with me on the phone. You could drive to her house and you can hand her the phone. And I'm going to talk to her. So he did that. He didn't want me to get in the car and come. So he drove to her house. I said, and when you get to her house, don't open your mouth. Give her the phone.
Right.
And I talked to her on the phone and I said, you know who this is? Now all this here. I say, I don't even want to know why you slept with him. It don't even matter at this point. I say, did you get infected? She told me she did. I say, what do you plan on doing? She said, well, he told me I might as well stay with him because nobody ain't going to ever want me again. I said, well, guess what? He told me the same thing. And I'm not staying with his ass. I said, if you stay with him, you're a fool. So here it is. What we're in, November 2022. She's still with him.
Wait till now? She went back with him?
She never left him. When he went to prison, she literally, with her and her baby, would drive back and forth from South Carolina to Florida to see him in prison. She never left him. She never left.
Where did this woman come from? I mean, because it seems like they must have had a deeper connection than her just being, a baby mama. You're the wife, but if he's still with her after all these years.
No, she was just a temp worker. She wasn't even a permanent worker at BMW. She was a temp worker, and they met, I guess, at work.
Oh, she was one of the people at work, too.
Yeah, she was one of the people at work.
Wow. And so he was just running through the staff, basically, at his job.
She got pregnant by him. She knew about me, so it wasn't like she didn't know he had a wife. She knew about me.
Wow.
She knew. So, and I told her, that's your karma. You knew about me. Should have sat down somewhere and found your own man. And so she knew. She didn't say nothing. And so, she did that. And she's still with him.
That's crazy.
And guess what? He don't do nothing for my twins. His mama he's never seen the twins. He's seen pictures. He's never physically seen them. If they saw him, they wouldn't know who he was. They don't associate anybody with the word dad or father. They don't.
So they must, how old are they now? 14, 15?
14.
14, okay.
His mama has never done nothing for them. She's seen them and seen pictures. Nothing. But guess what? That baby he had with that woman, let them tell it. That's the youngest grandchild. But of course, my twins are the youngest. My twins are his youngest. They don't acknowledge my twins. or none of that.
That's
But the
crazy.
family know. The family know because one of his uncles, when they found out, when one of his uncles found out, his uncle printed the news article out and mailed it to everybody in the family. So the whole everybody know in the family. They know about the kids. They know the kids. I'm close with one of his cousins. She don't deal with him or none of the other people like that. But me and her are very close. You
That's
know,
a blessing.
you know, and I just saw him for the first time in 15 years in August when I had to go to court for child support because he hadn't
For
paid child
him, to try
support
to
in
get him
years.
to pay back child support.
Well, he hadn't paid child support in years. So when he got out of prison, they started child support. He had,
Okay.
which means he had to go get a job. He had to do all that,
Mm-hmm.
and so and honestly, that 1 year that he didn't pay child support was the first time that he had never paid child support. So he was probably going from one job to the other. I didn't care. I didn't ask. I just do what I have to do for my kids. I don't question the other parent when it comes to my kids' needs. And so they sent me the letter and said basically he haven't paid. He's in contempt of court. He got to have this amount of money or we're going to put him in jail. You could come to the court date, but if you don't come, whatever we decide, that's that. I'm going to always advocate for my kids. I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning and was on the road to South Carolina so I could be to court by 8 a.m.
Wow.
And once court was over, I drove right back home the same day. And so that was the first time I had seen him. I didn't acknowledge
How did that
him.
feel, seeing him after 15
Well, I
years?
saw both of them because for whatever reason, she was with him. She was with him. She came with him to court. So she was with him. So I saw both of them. I didn't acknowledge them. I didn't give them eye contact. The most I probably said to him was thank you because he held the door for me when we were leaving out of the room with the mediator. That was it. I didn't have no small talk, no none of that. I have nothing to say to you. Before we went into the courthouse, I went into the bathroom and talked to myself in the mirror. I said, Renee, you in a whole nother state. Mind your mouth. Mind your mouth. You don't want to be going to jail or doing nothing that's going to get you in trouble in another state. I had to give myself that pep talk because I knew I was going to be angry and all my emotions was going to come back when I saw him. So that's why I just focused on other things. My oldest daughter, she rode with me, so I had her there with me. You know, while we were standing in line waiting, there was a guy and this lady that we were talking to in line. So I had focus around me that I didn't have to worry about him. And so, yeah, it's just, yeah.
I still think it was just God. I mean, because your strength and your peace in the midst of multiple storms and, you know, carrying twins that ultimately, I believe, became healthy. Am I correct?
Well, no,
You know,
they both have disabilities. So my son has cerebral palsy, so he functions less than a year old on some things. Some things I feel like he a grown man the way he be acting.
Gotcha.
But he's in a wheelchair. He's completely dependent on me. He can't walk. He doesn't talk. But he understands. His twin. So I had a girl and a boy. His twin. She is pretty much very independent. She feeds herself, bathe herself, clothes, you know, she can clothe herself. She lazy. I have to do it for her, but whatever. She is on the autism spectrum. And just newly we kind of are looking at possibly her having also like the ADHD because she can go from 0 to 1,000 when her triggers happen of her not being able to get what she wants or do what she wants. So they both have different disabilities, but they're 14, so it's a part of our normal routine. I know how to deal with it. People tell me all the time they don't see how I even do it with them because I'm very patient. I have to be patient. I have very structured routine in my house. Like right now, my 8-year-old is up. I hear my son talking. I'm pretty sure his twin is awake. So we get a little off of routine right now, and that's okay. But once I get off live, you already know, lights out. Good night.
Right.
They know. So, but yeah, they have their disabilities.
Wow. Well, I'm going to continue to keep them and you in my prayers because this story has probably been one of the most amazing ones that I've heard so far. And I wanted to know, how you told me a little bit about how life is for you right now, with the kids and everything. But I wanted to know, how did everything you've been through? I mean, it's been unthinkable and, shocking, but like I said, I'm so proud of, who you've evolved into, because all this still happened when you were relatively young too,
Very young, yeah.
and what's your out? I mean, because you had the traditional values for people who aren't here at the beginning, because I wanted to paint the picture of who you were evolving into as a young woman before this chaotic, unexpectable, thing happened to you. Um, what's your outlook on love and dating and marriage now?
So, I did get remarried a second time. I'm not
Okay.
currently married now. I'm
Okay.
single right now, but I did get married a second time because I was in a vulnerable and naive state.
Okay.
That's a
Was this
whole nother.
at what
That's
point
literally a
was this
whole nother story. Like it's
we got to do a part two. But I wanted to
yeah,
know, like,
yeah.
at what point were you in your life when you got married a second time? Like, when was
I
it
was
involved this
so it was
chaos?
2013. So
Okay.
2013, I got remarried. I had just come out of a long about a year and a half relationship that ended like abruptly. It just ended with no communication, no understanding of what happened. Found out
Mm-hmm.
later on what took place, which had I not been so naive or been angry, it could have been resolved and I probably would have still been with that person today. But
Okay.
I just was like, you should have said something. So I
Mm-hmm.
ended up meeting my second husband during that moment of and just being vulnerable, being naive,
Mm-hmm.
and we got married. Found out through that marriage, a lot of stuff happened in that marriage. Domestic violence situation happened, more infidelity. Um, yeah, that's like I said, that's
So your
and
concurrent
so
relationship, I'm sorry, what'd you say, love?
no, I was gonna say so from that second marriage,
Mm-hmm.
that has caused me to be where I'm at now with my views on love and relationships. I don't want to be married again.
Okay. Okay.
I said it the other day when I was live on Facebook. I say I will be your special friend in your obituary because I'm not signing no nothing. I'm not signing no marriage license. I'm not doing it. If you want me
Right.
to change my name, I could legally change my last name, but we could do what notarized letters saying, hey, if I
Mm-hmm.
pass away, this person is entitled to my estate or whatever. But I'm not doing no marriage license. I'm not doing that.
Right.
I don't want to. I don't. I feel like it's just a piece of paper at this point because I did it twice and it didn't. It was worthless to me. Like it.
Yeah.
So that's And now, with just ending a relationship that I was in for 2 years in
Mm-hmm.
June, I'm just like I'm confused. It changed my views on religion and
Mm-hmm.
everything. I'm more spiritual than I am religious now.
Got you.
Because I felt like that second marriage, I was like, oh, God done sent me this man. We married, we going to church every Sunday, we going to Bible study. Like it was like what I
Mm-hmm.
wanted my first marriage to kind of be.
Right.
And then all this, the ish hit the fan,
Yeah.
so it was like, I don't want to see nobody church. I don't want to, I don't, no, I don't want to know about your Bible. I don't want to know about this.
Right.
Like, that's
I
how I
understand.
felt. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I was feeling.
Yeah.
Eventually I did come out of that slump and I did start going back to church a little bit. But then, of course, with my kids' disability, it became overwhelming. So if I did start watching church, I was looking at it online or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
now I don't go to I don't go. Like I said, I'm spiritual, not religious. If I feel a moment I want to hear some gospel music or hear a word or
Mm-hmm.
something, I know how to do that.
Yeah.
But it just really changed my views on that. Changed my views on love. Like, I'm not gonna ever assume that you my soulmate. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna assume that the Lord sent you to me.
Mm-hmm.
None of that. You just gonna have to show me who you are, and I'm gonna just have to see it with my own two eyes. I'm not gonna assume nothing. None of
Right.
that. because
I
I
feel
feel
you.
like I did a lot of assuming in the past, and my assumptions led me down the path that they led me down. And I'm like, nah, we're not doing it. So now
I
it's
want,
like,
go ahead, love.
no, I'm done.
Okay. I wanted to know, okay, so given everything you went through with, falling in love, the husband not telling you his HIV status, going on to find out that he was living multiple double lives, triple lives, quadruple lives, maybe infecting up to 50, 60, 70 people or more, because of significant others also contracting it, and being criminally prosecuted, and having to go to jail, and putting you and your unborn twins in jeopardy. You all's unborn twins, those are his children. You all were married. You did all the right things leading up. You had, even when he was your fiance, you had protected sex. You didn't break that until your marriage night, like, many people believe.
Right.
When you enter relationships now, the relationship after him, the second marriage, the relationship you just got out of in June, what conversation do you have with men? You know what I mean? And how much, I wanted to know, because like people have enough trouble communicating the past and what to share, what not to share. What are your conversations like with the men? Do they share your status? I mean, does that make it easier, or do they not? Or do you disagree to have protected sex? You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to understand
Right.
from a,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So I've dated men who were negative, and I've dated men who are positive.
Hmm.
It's so for me, I just in general for me, dating period is a challenge because I am open with my status. I'm
Okay.
open
Okay.
with it. People know
Hmm.
I go out, I speak, I share my story, all that stuff. So
Hmm.
it's all that is the biggest challenge, because whether they're positive or negative, in their mind, well, what if somebody assumes because you're positive that I'm
Hmm.
positive if they're really
Right.
negative?
Right.
Or what if they're positive, but they don't want nobody to know their status, but they want to be with me. But if somebody see them with me, that person might assume their status, even they don't know that their status is their status. So it's a thing of, I get the stigma from both ends of it with dating for me.
Hmm.
I've dated guys who were like my second husband. He was negative. He wasn't
Right.
positive. We
Okay.
have an 8-year-old child, you
Okay.
know,
So
and
wait, how do you, I mean, because I don't know. And a lot of people don't know. And I mean, I don't know what your time's like. I know you got, now I know you have, I call everybody baby who's under 18. I know you got the babies. So,
right.
and the 8-year-old. How, how do you, um, how do you have a child and the child not be at risk? You know what I mean? Like, how do you
Right.
have unprotected sex and
Right.
then he not be at risk, the
Right.
child not be at risk? How does that happen? Because I'm not educated and I know people have questions.
Right.
So I wanted, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's many different ways that this can work. So you have, you got IVF, in vitro fertilization. You could do that. You could do, you don't want to pay that thousands of dollars to do that. You could do it the other way. Get a turkey baster, you know,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
take, that way. Or you could have sex.
Hmm.
So we went to the doctor, we discussed it because he didn't have kids. And
Okay.
so we discussed the options. The doctor told us our options. And I said to him, what do you want to do? He was like, you're my wife. I want to have my child with you the way anybody else would have a child.
Okay.
So that would require us to, yes, have unprotected sex. That would also require me, being HIV positive, to be what's called undetectable,
Okay.
meaning that my virus is so low in my body that there's no way I can infect him.
Okay. Got you.
And that
Got
has
you.
to be proven through lab results showing, yes, I'm undetectable, not just by me saying, oh, well, yeah, I'm taking my medicine, I'm undetectable. The lab results have to show that, yes, I am actually
Oh, okay.
undetectable.
I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
wasn't aware of any of that. I didn't know what
And so,
undetectable meant. Okay.
yeah, and so remaining undetectable. Now with him, I mean, we could have had whatever sex we wanted to have, but I personally chose. I said, well, women have that ovulation window. So in my ovulation window, there's a peak. I say at the peak of that ovulation window is the only time I want to have unprotected sex with you.
Got you. Okay.
Because I didn't want to, even though I knew about, you know, not being able to transmit the virus to him and things like that, I wanted to be cautious.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
the first time we tried, that one time in that window, didn't get pregnant. Second time we tried, in that one time in that window, I got pregnant. After that, condoms, we wasn't taking no risk no more after that. And then just through the pregnancy, making sure I'm taking my medicine, going to the doctor. Because at that point, once you're pregnant and you're HIV positive, you see OBGYN that also deals with infectious disease. They have specific OBGYNs that are geared toward infectious disease. And so the doctor I saw here, amazing. I had him with my twins, had him with my 8-year-old. He was like, really? You want to have another one? Because honestly, really, not all doctors, but a lot of times when you're HIV positive and you maybe find out when you're pregnant or something, they try to encourage you to get your tubes tied or not, you know. But I told them, I was like, listen, I'm not doing that. If it's meant for me to have another child, it's going to happen. If it's not meant for me, it's not going to happen. But I'm not going to purposely make it where I can't have a child, you know.
Okay. Right.
And so I refuse to get my tubes tied. I have 4 kids now.
Okay.
My tubes are not tied, but it's set. I can't have no kids. Okay.
You decided you can't have any kids.
Yeah, I'm set. So
the shop is closed.
So it is possible to have kids, be HIV positive, and still do whatever you want to do.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. I don't know if other people are aware of that. You know, so that's
don't know. They like you can't have no kids. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I didn't know undetectable allows you to, you know, maybe safely have unprotected sex. I didn't know any of that. And I don't know if the general populace necessarily knows unless you've done a lot of research.
It's not encouraged to have unprotected sex. Even though you're undetectable, it's not encouraged only because there are other STDs out there that you can contract from unprotected sex. So, yeah.
So I wanted to know, with everything you've been through, and I ask this on every episode, this is a very special edition, but I wanted to know if everything you've been through, everything you've shared, you know, with us in your testimony. I'm sorry, you need a break?
No, hold on.
Okay. So this is Renee Ladybird Burgess, and she has been sharing her story. I don't even know what time it is. I don't have my normal laptop sitting here, but she's been sharing her testimony with us about how she contracted HIV from her husband. They dated, had a very traditional relationship, you know, and she unexpectedly found out after they were married, even though they had premarital blood tests and everything else. And she has graciously shared all kinds of, you know, details about it to help educate other people, help enlighten them. I mean, and she's done it so courageously, everything she went through. She found out while she was pregnant with twins. She shared with us where the twins are now at 14 years old, you know, the prosecution of her ex-husband, how he infected, you know, potentially, you know, upwards of 50, 60, maybe even 70 people or more, you know, at his job for the most part, you know, unfortunately, seemingly men and women, relationships with men and women, and just educating us on her, not only her story, but the progression of what she's been through over the last 15 years. And ultimately what even felt like seeing him 15 years later. So that's what we've been talking about. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, good. So do you want me to, I know I wanted to ask you before I open up the floor for questions if you still have time. I know you got the babies and everything.
I got time. They come.
Okay. Okay. So I wanted to ask you, I ask this on every show, but I always want to know because typically a lot of mine are, you know, NBA champions or, you know, musical artists, and they are in front of millions of people doing something totally different than what you're advocating for in front of thousands and thousands of people, or advocating about rather. What do you fear? Because you've been through, really, to put it mildly, the unthinkable. You know what I mean? What do you fear at this point?
Nothing. I mean, like, honestly, really, I don't have a lot. I don't really have fears. I just like you say, I've been through so much. It's just like, I sometimes I say, well, you know, what else could happen? You know, what at this point, like, what else is there left to happen? You know, so I kind of don't really think about fears like that. I know that, you know, of course I know there's things I haven't been through, but it's just the fact that I've gone through what I've gone through. I feel like I could face anything at this point.
I believe you. I mean, your faith has been, I mean, it seems unshakable, but it's easy to say that when you're on the outside looking in at someone, say, oh, she got crazy faith. But I know that there's ebbs and flows in life. And I know when your back is against the wall and the water's up to here, you know, for very different reasons, you know, but nonetheless, when you think you're in danger, you know, it's a different level of faith that develops, you know what I mean? And so, it looks like to people that it's unshakable, but it's really levels to that, having that faith and developing a real relationship with God. And so I totally understand being spiritual versus and believing in God, knowing God is God, and being indoctrinated, you know what I mean? And sitting around thumping a Bible and holding hymnals all day, you know what I mean? And so there's a very different thing. And I wanted to open it up because there was one young lady who asked me, who follows me avidly, Cousin Mimi, if you're on here, she said she doesn't mind me adding you. If there's some other people who want to be added, now make sure either she knows who you are or I know who you are, because we ain't having no, you know, showtime up in here. We ain't doing that, you know. So I'm not sure my friend who normally looks out for me is still in here to cancel y'all real quick. So if she knows you, if I know you, and Cousin Mimi, send me a request. And if there's someone else who has a question, I'll read the question that came earlier. If you're still here, I'll still read it because you can watch the playback. I want to, while they're doing that, I want to ask you, what are you most proud of accomplishing throughout everything that you've endured, everything that God has allowed you to survive, grow through, all of that?
I think I am probably most proud of the fact that I am back in school right now.
Okay.
So I started, I'm in school now, like this semester. My classes end in December.
Okay.
I'm back on my journey. So the journey I'm on now is my end goal is to become an infectious disease physician. That is where I'm at.
Oh, wow. Okay. I love that.
So,
okay, so if you all want to ask, I mean, if you tell me you recognize their name, I don't mean personally know her. I mean, we just don't want showtime up in here. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Happens on IG sometimes when you add random people. If you all can ask a question.
If they follow me on Facebook.
Yeah. If you follow her on Facebook, she recognizes your name, I'm going to add you. That's what I mean. I don't mean personally know her. So go ahead and send me a request or type your questions, hit the question mark, whatever one, you know, she's comfortable with, you know, do that.
They can type it or they can, whichever.
Yeah, type it or I'll add you briefly so you can ask your question directly to her. And so I got one. I don't know, is Cousin Mimi still here? Let me see, because she was the one who said, I have a lot of questions. So let me look real quick.
I saw that name a few minutes
ago. Yeah, she's been here the whole time. I don't know if she's still here, though.
And I saw my oldest daughter's goddad comment. I don't know if he's still watching either. I think he's gone.
Okay.
Oh, no, he's watching.
I see her. Let me see if she still wants to come up or ask a question.
Okay. My oldest daughter's goddad, we found him. We lost contact, and we found him years ago. And he has been there ever since.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry.
Is this Cousin Mimi? Yes, that's Cousin Mimi.
I'm sorry.
And let me look. There's one more person. Let me ask about this person. Just Tom for them. Official Tom Fordham. And he has a question.
Oh, they can ask the question.
Okay. All right. Let me add him and see what his question is.
Come on.
Okay. I'll see what his question is as well, along with Cousin Mimi. Okay, go ahead, Cousin Mimi. What was your question, love?
I didn't have any questions. I just said that I worked. I'm sorry. I worked in the field, and in working in the field, they always mentioned our community as being high risk. You know, we were the most high risk group, and the males who have sex with males oftentimes were the ones being infected. But there was a lot of white gay males, and I'm like, well, why is it our group that's more affected, right? So when I started working there, I found out that there was medications that you can take called PrEP, and that's like a medication you can take, kind of like a birth control pill every day, and you would not contract HIV. And if you had an encounter with somebody who was positive, or you got raped or something, they would give you some medication that would prevent you from contracting it. You take it like over a 30-day period or something. And so this wasn't privy in my community where I'm from. You know, Atlanta and everywhere else might have heard of this, but the smaller cities didn't know anything about it. So in that case, that's why we were at high risk, because we didn't have that information. So that's all I wanted to add to it. But thank you for sharing your story. It's amazing. You're an amazing person. I know you hear this all the time. We don't talk about stuff like this a lot because people are like embarrassed or ashamed. It's nothing to be ashamed about. It's not a death sentence like it used to be. And I just think you're amazing, and I want to thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you joining in, Cousin Mimi. I appreciate your support and continuously following me and always showing love. And yes, I was amazed by her candor and her kindness and her graciousness in sharing her story. And I know it's educating a lot of people, including me, you know, because there's so many things I didn't know. And, you know, the blessing on doing this platform, and I hope I do it with humanity and grace with all of my 100 and something, you know, guests, you know, because I ask the questions I know people sometimes are thinking but afraid to ask, you know, but I think that's the only way you can educate people. That's the only way you can make people aware of things to be look out for, things, questions they may need to ask in relationships, maybe readjust how they approach relationships. So I think that's so important. I don't know your name, sir, but is it just for them or just?
It's just Tom Fordham, but I mean,
just
that's my
Tom
MC.
Fordham. I'm sorry, love. Just Tom Fordham. Okay, Mimi, I'm gonna move you down in case someone else has a question. Okay, love? Okay, thank you, baby.
So my question is just because I'm an instructor for drug offenders, so I do deal with a lot of people who come in who are HIV positive or just scared to get tested and things of that nature. And, you know, my thing is when you first got diagnosed or when you were, you know, when dealing with that situation, like, how did you move on is what I mean. Like, how did you put that in the back of your head and you say, like, this is what I got and this is what I'm dealing with. And I'm gonna be an advocate for it. How long did it take you to just become your normal self again?
Oh, goodness.
That was a good question.
Yeah. So literally, so I'm 39. So from the age of 24 to 34, I was engulfed in HIV advocacy. I literally, once I started, I just threw myself into it. I was Ladybird. I wasn't Renee. I forgot who Renee was. That 18, 19-year-old, I forgot who I was. I was Ladybird. I was breathing, sleeping, drinking, because I started drinking. Like, that's who I was. I was drinking to cope with just going through the motion of the day, you know. And it wasn't like I was drinking every day, but I had 1 year where I just threw myself into a bottle every day. Wow. It was by my bedside. I ain't need no ice. I ain't need nothing. I ain't need no cup. Just that bottle was right there. Wake up in the middle of the night, thirsty, bottle. Like, none of this. And so one day I just woke up and I said, you know what? I got to change. Like, so I took a break from like consistently doing my advocacy. I stopped drinking the way I was, and I found out who found Renee. I found Renee again. I said, okay, this is me. I started doing the things that I used to do. I said, okay, whenever I was 18, 19, 20, 21, what did I do? What made me happy? And I started doing that. Listen to music. doing radio, you know, I started doing a radio show because that started making me happy. I love music. I started going to the movies more, just different little things that I would do to bring myself back to who I remember Renee was. You know, now here I am. I'm still Renee, but I'm more evolved. I'm this new Renee. But now I'm able to manage being the advocate, not always letting the empathy of others like get tossed onto me, because I am an empath, so I pick up everybody's emotions. And I think that's what was happening. I was getting drained from that too. So having all those emotions and just finally figuring out how to like manage it and get through it is what really helped me just get to the point of understanding. And so where I'm at now is what I'm getting ready to start teaching people who are diagnosed is how to cope and deal with your diagnosis and look at it from a standpoint of, you know how when people are grieving and they go through the 5 stages of grief?
Yeah.
That's how you have to look at a new diagnosis, whether it's cancer, diabetes, HIV, whatever it is. You have to look at it like that, because you're going to go through all of those stages. You're going to go through the denial, the depression. But what did you do to get to the acceptance stage? And once you figure out what it is you do to get to the stage of acceptance, no matter how many times you go back to stage 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to always know how to pull yourself back to the acceptance stage. But it's about learning how to do that and figuring out what works for you as you navigate through life with whatever it is new that you're dealing with. In my instance, the HIV diagnosis. So I literally, December 31st, 2021, I went cold turkey on alcohol, period. You know, I might have still sipped and dipped a little bit, but I say, you know what? I went to the store. They had a buy one, get one free on some Bel Air champagne. Bought me 2 bottles, drunk them 2 bottles. January 1st of 2022 came in, and I ain't touched nothing since.
Okay, that's a blessing.
And I said, that was a start for me. I had to get my diabetes in check because I'm a diabetic. My doctor said, you want to get on this once-a-week injection? Well, you got to do this first. I said, okay, what I got to do? I'm ready. Start doing it. Once you figure out what's going to work for you, do it. And use that to motivate you every single day.
Yes.
Hey man, I appreciate you for sharing your story. And like I said in the comments, you are strong and God has a plan for you. And I appreciate y'all for letting me come up here and ask my question. And I also
Tom, that was an amazing
Thank
question.
you.
I
Yeah,
appreciate you, love. Make sure you follow me. I got some dope interviews.
Oh
And this
yeah,
one was amazing.
no worries.
Look, and my daughter, God did. Talking about better not.
But you know what? The thing is, you know, in my mind, I mean, I guess it was so much for us to talk about. You know, I had this question down here, like, what's been the most challenging thing you've experienced? Well, like, didn't you tell us about it all? But then you really didn't, because I didn't ask you about the real coping mechanism, the downside of getting to a level of faith. You know, I alluded to it. So that was an excellent question, Tom. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Where'd the name Ladybird come from? I didn't mean to ask you that.
Oh gosh, this name, I've had this name. So I've had this name since probably 18 or 19 years old. Before I had, hold on. No. Sorry. No, stop. She literally, she going from this way to that way with the bicycle.
Not the bicycle.
Because it's a big space right here. And she got a water bottle on the back tire to make the noise. Girl. It's cooler.
Kids be doing it. They be doing it all.
Yes. Look, he's talking about 2005. No, it was before 2005. It was probably 2000. I was 18 or 19. So it was 2001, 2002. I was on Yahoo. I used to get on Yahoo Chat a lot back in the day, you know, Yahoo, AOL Messenger, all that stuff. And I look, somebody said Larry Bird because they know I like Boston Celtics.
Not Larry
That's
Bird.
a part of it too. I thought about it. I was like, ooh, that go with it too. But I was dating. So at one point I was dating this guy. His last name was Bird.
Okay.
So his nickname was actually Bird.
Okay.
And so when we start dating, everybody start calling me Lady Bird.
Okay.
Because he
Okay.
was Bird, and they was like, well, we're just going to call you Lady Bird. Like that. So it stuck with me, even, and it followed me into, like, Yahoo. Because my
Okay.
original Yahoo name was something different. I forgot what it was. And then
Okay.
I switched it to Bird on there. So, like, my daughter's guardian, the one name that says That Boy Fire, he's
Okay.
known me. We met online. Like, we met as friends on the internet, on social media. Like how me and you are meeting now, like we
Yeah.
met. And so he's known me that long. And the name just stuck with me. It stayed. People still kept calling me that. And the guy who I was dating, he was like, you just gonna keep my name? Sure is. It's mine now.
That is funny. That is comical.
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that that's how where Lady Bird came from.
Yeah. And then, of
And I
course,
want,
I'm a Boston Celtics fan. I love Larry Bird. So I could flip it and be like, I
so
love
he was right. So he was right.
Yeah. In a little bit, yeah.
Well, that's dope. I wanted to, what did I want to ask you? I wanted to ask you kind of, and I want to thank again Devontae Riley. I think I did earlier, but these interviews run together in my brain. But Devontae Riley is a super talented recording artist, nephew of legendary.
It was like 4 of us on live. It was
Yes, it was.
him, Dave Tolliver.
Oh yeah, Dave was in it. That's like we were hanging out with Dave, Devontae, me, and you.
We were all
Yeah.
Because I remember I was in the bed. I was like, what y'all want? I'm in the bed.
Yeah, I mean, he had added me because I saw him and Dave up there, and so Dave is the homie. So I've had Men at Large. Dave Tower is one part of Men at Large. So I've had Men at Large and Ruffins and all them on here. So Dave Tyler was on there. Devontae Riley, who's the super talented nephew of legendary Teddy Riley, multi-platinum producer, and he introduced us. He said, Char, you need to know her. So Devontae is always thinking ahead, like, you should interview her. And so I was like, okay. I said, well, love, what's your story? And then she told me in a snapshot. I was like, oh, okay, well, let's set it up. And so I tell people this show books itself. You know what I mean? So people DM me and the entertainers and stuff like that. I've had an entertainment sports management company for 26 years. I never introduced myself until the end, if at all. But I work with thousands of people. But this is new to me, having the conversations that I've always wanted to have and introducing people the way I really want to introduce them and really helping them, tell their story. I think with dignity, grace, humanity, and love. It's not about likes. It's not about, trying to shock them, and ask it all crazy so we get an internet bite. I'm not doing that, so y'all can follow me if you want to. I'm going to give you dope conversations. I'm going to ask real questions, but from a humanity standpoint and let people tell their story the way they want to. And anytime she kind of went to the left, I was like, okay, we're going left then. I'm not taking the interview where I wanted to go. That's how I interview, so I follow the guest lead. Like, this is what they want to talk about. And I'll ask permission. Is something you want to talk about? You want me to move on? It's not about shock value. So if you want good interviews, follow me. But my question was, you talked about how the former mother-in-law has kind of, acted, abandoned, whatever. How did your parents respond? Over these years, you watching their daughter, their baby go through all this stuff. And, they come from this traditional background, raised you in the church, raised you with ideals of tradition and whatever they're doing. How did they, manage this? How have they engaged with this whole situation? What has it been like for them?
All right. So this is the part that I didn't get into. So his mother, I told you we met at her house for a family gathering.
Okay.
So his mother at the time was engaged to my mother's first cousin.
Wait a minute. His mother was engaged to your mother's. So y'all connected.
We were connected because his mom was getting ready to marry my mother's cousin. When
she introduced you to her son.
Right.
So again, she was a family friend. Wait, so I forgot about that part because we've been talking about a lot.
She was a
family friend. It's been a lot.
Yeah.
So the mama introduced her to the husband who ultimately infected her and probably damn near 100 people with HIV.
Yeah.
She was engaged to a family member,
She was
right?
engaged to my mother's, yes, to she
Cousin.
was engaged to literally my mother's cousin.
So she's basically family in a way, or family in law.
Right, you
And it
know,
takes a
yeah.
whole different look that she didn't tell you the truth.
Right, that's what
That
I'm
she
saying.
didn't.
Yeah. And so, you know, so she knew, my mother's cousin knew.
Mm-hmm.
He knew. So here's the story. The way that, so once I actually did talk to his mom, have a conversation with her, let her know how I felt about her not telling me, it became a thing of him just being a liar all the way around. Because,
Wait a minute, your ex-husband or your cousin?
right,
Your
my
ex-husband.
ex-husband.
Okay, got you.
Because even though that situation happened at her house, I guess at some point, somewhere, he told his mom that I knew.
But
Somewhere
why would
along the
you ask
line,
that question if you knew?
no, after the fact, somewhere along the lines, after that moment,
Okay.
I guess she must have came to him and said, "Did you finally tell her the truth?" or something like that. And he must have told her that he told me. So,
and he didn't. Okay,
right,
got you.
and so she assumed that at some point I knew.
Mm-hmm.
After that point when she thought, told me to ask him, and so it caused a big issue in our family because she's married to my mom's cousin, and then
But
there
your
was a
mom's
point,
cousin is your cousin too, right?
right? Well,
Okay.
like I said, my mama cousin.
Yeah. Oh, because you don't have a
Yeah.
relationship with him. Okay. Okay, got it.
And so, there was a point before our marriage that, like I said, it was close. They were getting their house renovated, and they were going to go stay in a hotel. My parents said, well, Renee's going. At this point, my brother had got married, so he was in his own house. So my parents was in the house by myself. My parents say, well, so y'all don't have to waste money on a hotel. We got extra space. Just come stay here. So for a couple of months, they were living at my parents' house while part of their house was getting renovated. Like I say, this was not, like I keep telling people, it wasn't like I just met this man and all this stuff just took place and these people didn't know us. Like, his mama knew me very well. Like I said, I knew his mama before I knew him. It wasn't like she was newer to the family. So it did cause a rift in the family because at that point, my mom's cousin, who would come and see her all the time, because my mom had sickle cell, so she's always been sick off and on most of her adult life with her sickle cell since she was 40, which is when she found out she had sickle cell.
She found out late in life.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, because she had no reason to get checked for it, because she assumed as a baby she didn't have it. My grandma didn't know. But he would come over every weekend or whenever and check on my mama and everything. That stopped. One of my aunts was still doing Avon stuff with his mama. And I told my aunt, I say, just make sure you let me know in case I come visit you if she coming or on the way so I don't show up. And what my aunt started doing was I would give my aunt pictures of the kids. This is what, even with my oldest daughter, I get pictures of the kids. I would give my aunt pictures of the kids. My aunt on her own, she told me after the fact, she was like, when she come over here, what I do? I said, what you do? She said, I take the kids' pictures and I put them on my dining room table where we sit. I said, because even if she don't do nothing about them with them kids, she gonna see their face when she walk in my house. So she could feel all the guilt that she gonna feel.
Wow.
So my
As
aunt
she
started
should.
doing that. And then, whenever we would have, like, one of my uncles, his wife passed away, I ended up encountering them at the funeral because, it's their relatives. So she comes with my mom's cousin to the funeral. So even after all this took place, I'm still in spaces with her, but I'm not interacting with her. Of course, you see the eyes of people looking around to see if we're going to say something to each other. And I'm a type of person, I'm going to be cordial. If she says, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? And I leave it at that. I've even bumped into her in Bath and Body Works, and, we lock eyes, and I just say, hey, how you doing? And keep it moving. You know, so it's not like I can't be cordial with her, but my thing is, I'm not going to allow you to be one way and then all of a sudden be another way. I'm just going to keep you at that cordial state, because I don't want, you know, I want her to have a part in the kid's life, but I don't want you to come in their life and then at some point then you don't do nothing.
Right.
You know, so at this point, since you ain't initiating that, because I've never told him he can't come and see the kids. He come in town and see his mom all the time, bring the other child, the woman with him. They always come
He
in
goes
town.
to his mama's house and takes the other kid. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just, at this point, I say, this is something they have to take with them to their grave.
Yes.
I've done what I need to do as the mother to these kids and the person who went through this process. I've done all I need to do. I'm not pacifying nobody no more. I'm not giving excuses for nobody. I'm not bending over backwards for nobody.
Right.
So that's where I got it with that.
So it caused strange between you and your parents, or how were your parents with the whole thing?
My mom was my dad. I think my dad dealt with it way better than my mom. My mom was early on, she was very stigmatizing. If I would go to speaking events, she would say, was it somebody there that knew me or somebody there you knew? Like, she was afraid for people to find out and know.
Oh, okay.
Initially. Okay. Because, like, my parents, they've been together they've known each other since elementary school. They didn't start dating until after high school when my dad came back for Korea and they got married. So they've known each other longer than the 48 years they've been married. And so I had to sit them down and show them a video and let them know, hey, you can't get HIV from this, and this. You ain't got to get paper plates and forks and spoons. Like, you ain't got to do all that. I had to educate them. My mom was still kind of leery about it. You know, she was worried about other people's opinions of me and me sharing. Until I just had to take her one day with me to a speaking event. And at the speaking event, kind of find out it was somebody that she knew.
Wow.
And so afterwards,
so somebody she knew actually had HIV. She didn't know that, though.
They were just at an event where they asked me to speak at a banquet.
Okay, got you.
And so it was for the health department, because my mom used to work for the health department doing wicked nutrition, but she, you know, other people in the department.
Got you.
So the lady who she knew, she used to work at one of the clinics my mom went to do the WIC. And so they was talking and she sat with the lady. And so afterwards, the lady went to my mom and told her, I really admire your daughter. She's strong. She this, and this. And that, I think, is what kind of changed my mom's viewpoint on what I do. You know, because honestly, there was a lot of stuff. Because we haven't even got to that part yet, but I've written 2 books and I'm doing a 3rd. But my first book is the autobiography where I share my story. Okay. So in that book, there's a lot of stuff in that book my parents didn't know about. They didn't know the first time I had sex till they read that book. I let them read the book before I even put it in book form. Okay. I just say, here, y'all read this. I need y'all, So they found that out. It's a lot of stuff they found out. But there's also a lot of stuff that I spared in that book at the sake of them. Yeah. Because even though I grew up in a 2-parent household, I grew up in a, that Christian setting. There was still a lot of stuff as a child that I did not get from my parents. I didn't get hugs and kisses from my parents. Oh, wow. Okay. There was not really a lot of affection as a kid from my parents. I don't ever recall I don't recall a time hugging my parents or either one of them grabbing me and hugging me, except, me and my daddy did a daddy-daughter dance at the wedding. Or when I was a kid in church, you get sleepy and sit on your mama's lap and fall asleep in church. But other than that, there was no other time that I could think of. So a lot of that also had to do a lot with, I think, some of the choices I made with relationships and dating until I kind of woke up, probably looking for that affection. Yeah. But I just, they're okay with it. you know, now my mama just fuss at me because why you be planning all these events and traveling and stuff? Because she just watched the kids while I went to Puerto Rico. And so she had to, not only did she have to watch them, but she had to get them off to school, do everything. She had to basically hold my house down.
She's not concerned about your travel. She's concerned about her being resident babysitter. She's like, wait a minute, Belle.
You ain't got nowhere else to go for a while. I was like, no, not yet. Not till my birthday next year.
Well, that's a blessing that, you know, she's able to support you in that way. But yeah, I can imagine, like, you know, our childhoods impact how we see life, how we view relationships, good, bad, or indifferent. And sometimes I'm glad you pointed that out about, you know, the lack of affection or them not being overly affectionate, because sometimes when you hear people been together 40, 50, 60 years, whether they were kids, you think, oh, that's just love, love, love. And it's not. Marriage is different things, different people, and everything else, you know, and family too.
Well, see, because it's so funny with, like, when I was younger, I used to ask my grandma all these questions. Like I was that kid. While my cousins and they outside playing, I'm sitting in the house in the chair next to my grandma watching Young and the Restless in the store, and I'm asking her questions about different stuff. So as I got older, I start paying attention to stuff. I'm like, you know what? All of my aunties, they done been married before. Like, I'm looking at it like, so I asked my aunt one time, I was like, I know you've been married before. I say, oh, y'all been married. You're not married no more. I was like, what made you get married? You know, just asking the question because I wanted to answer. She was like, well, you know, back then, so this is like 70s. She was like, you know, back then, most of the time, if you got pregnant, you was getting married. I was like, dang. And then so I was like, well, you know, my mama, they ain't do that. And my aunt looked at me, was like, you sure? I was like, yeah, I'm sure. My brother was born after they got married. So then I was like, oh shit, hold on. So
let me do the math.
Look, I was like, let me do the math. Hold on. They got married in November. He was born in April. Wait a minute, that ain't 9 months. So I asked my mama, I was like, I say, so did y'all get married because you was pregnant? She was like, well, she was like, yes and no. She was like, we were going to get married anyway, but we just did it at the time we did it because of whatever reason. But she was like, no, me and your dad actually dated. We're in a relationship, all that stuff. So it was, you know, it wasn't like she just popped up pregnant because they had said they like my grandma even told me, she was like, yeah, when your dad came back from Korea, he came in his army uniform and he came to the door and he said, asked to speak to your mom, and he asked, can he take her out on a date? So it was like, you know, so yeah, like somebody in the comments said, the love was there. It's just, you know, and you got to think about it. Maybe they didn't get certain type of affection. Like I know my dad sure didn't get like that type of affection either. So it can carry on down into your kids. So when I had kids, with my oldest daughter, at first I was very reserved, like because kids they just come up and want to grab them. And I would catch myself, I would cringe, and then I had to remember I had to break the cycle. So I started breaking the cycle. I don't know if you noticed, since we've been on here, my youngest daughter came and hugged me about 3 times. And,
yes, I think I saw that.
You know, so I had to get accustomed to it and break that cycle. So that's what ultimately I've been doing, is just breaking those cycles.
Yeah, because we either turn out exactly like our parents, or we start to break cycles and want something different, you know, for our lives, you know, or in your case, your children. I want to ask you, because we've been here for a while, I've enjoyed it. People have hung in there. It's gone from 49, 50, you know, 30, 35 right now. And so I want to ask you, what's next? Tell me about the books. Tell me what you want people to know. That's what I want to know. That's my last question.
Yeah, so I have a website. So my website is ladybirdofficial.com. So basically my Instagram name .com. And my first book is called Married But It Can Happen. It's my autobiography. It basically tells this story that I told you guys.
Okay.
In a lot more detail. You get the meat potatoes, you get the dessert, you get the appetizer, all in this book. You know, I take you back to some of the stuff I dealt with as a kid, bullying and things like that. I take you on a journey of relationships after my diagnosis.
Right.
Stuff I dealt with that. The book stops at December 2012. So you get basically from me being a kid up until 2012 in this book. My second book is HIV Around Me. It's a teen book, so it's for teens and young adults. It's a book with 4 short stories in it. They're not non-fictional. They're fictional books, stories, but I geared them to give you scenarios that teens and young adults can encounter in life.
Right.
And I introduced the terminology that we talk about in the health community. What is HIV? What is AIDS? What does it mean to take medicine? What is stigma? You know, I break these things down through these stories. And the stories are geared for the age group. So 13, maybe even 11 and 12, because we have 11, 12-year-olds having sex.
Yeah.
You know, so it's geared toward that age level, and even up in, like I say, young adults, so 18, 19. And then the book that I'm getting ready to release, which I'm hoping that I can finish it and release it December 1st for World AIDS Day on December 1st.
Okay. That's
that
soon,
book,
isn't it?
Huh?
That's soon, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So if anything, I might push the date to maybe another date in December, but I'm trying to let December 1st be it.
Okay.
But that book is the one that so when I was talking about the 5 stages of grief and how to get to that point and do all these things, that book is going to be about that. So the book is going to be, and it's funny because I heard you say it lately when I've been talking to people, they say the title of the book in our conversation. I'm like, they don't even know. That's right where I'm going. So the title of the book is called It's Levels to This.
Yes. Okay.
And then the subtitle is how dealing with the new HIV diagnosis, something like that. I ain't probably giving it to you the exact wording for the subtitle, but the main title is It's Levels to This.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah. And so that book is going to be direct to the point. It's going to be a book for anybody can read this book, but it's more geared to people who are HIV positive, who are just needing that help. They see me doing what I'm doing and they inboxing me, they messaging me, how are you coping? How do you deal with it? How do you have the strength? So I want this book to be one that shows them how I get through those stages. Yes, I get depressed. I'm not going to sit here. I was just depressed the whole month of July because I had to end a 2-year relationship that I really thought was going to be my life partner, you know? And I had to get out of that slump and get back to my acceptance stage and deal with it. So that's what that book is all about. It's just coping and dealing with it. And like I say, it's for everybody, because even though it's going to be talking about HIV, you can replace the word HIV with cancer, diabetes, sickle cell, whatever it is you're dealing with, replace that word with it, and it's going to still fit right in. Right. Yes. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm doing these virtual interviews. I'm doing virtual conferences. I'm all over the place.
Well, I love it. And like I said, I'm so super proud of you. I'm so super honored that my friend introduced us. And I'm on one level, I'm floored by everything you've been through. And on another level, it's a different level of admiration, honor and respect, because there's levels to this, like you said, of living life and living it more abundantly, and you are one day at a time, sometimes one moment at a time, finding that balance of living life abundantly and not just surviving. you know, and that's a blessing, because I've said many times on many different platforms, you know, a lot of people are just surviving. They're not
Right.
living.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a whole different thing to figure out how to live and enjoy that dash we all get from birth to death. We find a
Yeah.
way to enjoy and live it to the fullest. You know, do everything you want to do, try everything you want to try.
And
That's
right. And
that's
that's what
living.
I think that's why my mama got so accepting of me doing certain things, because I told her, I say, listen, if I haven't done it before, I want to do it.
Yeah.
Like when I found out about the conference in Puerto Rico, I
Mm-hmm.
went on there and I filled out they had a scholarship where I could be like a person that did social media stuff for the conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I filled it out. I was like, okay, if I get accepted, then we'll go from there. If I don't, whatever. They accepted me, everything paid for, all expenses paid.
I
I
like it.
told my mama, I say, listen, I ain't ever been to Puerto Rico. I say, not only can I go to Puerto Rico, I said, I'm going to a conference that's going to give me more information to educate and do more stuff.
Right.
I
Yeah.
said, if I got to find somebody to come and help you watch these kids, whatever I got to do, I say, I'm going to do it, but I want to go to this.
Mm-hmm.
My mama was like, oh, like she a Gemini. So one day you're
Me
going to get
too.
that Gemini, the other day you're going to get the other one. So she was like, I ain't watching no kids. I hope you cancel your trip. You know you ain't going. You know, just joking around. And
Uh-huh.
so I worked it out, got everything situated, got her schedule down. She knew what time the kids' buses pick them up, bring them home, what they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to eat, all that. I got everything situated. And that's kind of how it is. If it's something I never done and I'm
Mm-hmm.
able to do it, I want to do it. I do.
When's your mom's birthday?
She's June 13th.
I'm June 14th.
Oh,
I
and
told you earlier in the
so
interview I
my dad
liked
is
her.
a Gemini too. He a
Huh?
Gemini. He a May Gemini.
Who's a May Gemini? Your dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
just
two
imagine,
Geminis?
I had 4 parents, child.
Oh, yeah. Wait, where the 4 parents come from?
Them Geminis, they twin.
Oh, the twin, oh, the multiple personality. Oh, yes, absolutely. We do have split personalities, but it's not a bad thing. We're not crazy, crazy. It's just triggered. You know what I mean? And that's why I told you earlier in the interview when you said your mom said, "Why didn't you tell me so I could hold you?" I said she was coming to kill him. So I was like,
Exactly.
I knew, because now that she's a
Yeah,
Gemini, she was coming to kill
yeah,
him.
because
That's the other side of Gemini.
my dad was like, where you at? I was like, I'm at the store. My dad was like, where he at? I say, he home sleep. He say, okay, well, don't go home right now. I was like, why? Because, see, I'm in Spartanburg, and one of the main highways we live by, my dad went that way all the time delivering because he's a truck driver. My dad was like, because I'm about to go drive this truck straight through, because our apartment was right in the front, off the road. Like, if a car actually went off the road, they probably could have came where our apartment was.
Mhm.
My dad was like, because I'm about to drive this truck straight through this wall. I was like, no, don't do that. But I was like, sir, go make your delivery.
That's a Gemini. I'm trying to tell you, people say we crazy. We're not crazy. We are the sweetest, intelligent, life, you know, not even life of the party, engaging, entertaining people. We capture your energy, but don't mess with our
Right.
triggers. And typically our triggers are our money, our time, and our family. Don't mess with any of the 3. I'm not going to set it off and then restart the party like nothing happened. That's why you think we're crazy. Because we can kill
Yeah.
everybody in the place if you mess with one of them 3. And then like, okay, so what y'all want to do now? Go get something to eat. I think that's why you think we're crazy.
Exactly. Because my mom be like, no, you can go outside and play today. And then, like, she'll tell me, no, you ain't going outside tomorrow. Tomorrow come, can I go outside and play? Girl, go on outside. I'm like,
So we're not crazy, but don't mess with none of the 3. But we will set it off and then ask what you want to do now. Step over the
right.
body. Like what y'all want? What we want? Breakfast? What we doing?
Exactly.
So, but I enjoyed you, sis. I'm glad we finally made this happen. What's up, DJ Corrupt? I am glad we finally made this happen. Thank you all for coming and spending time. The last, I'm guessing 2 hours. My mental clock was I'm guessing it was 2 hours. Might have been longer, but I enjoyed it because I was going to let you tell your story the way you wanted to tell your story. I was here for it, to be educated, enlightened, you know, and admire you even more than I did when you gave me the cliff notes. So I enjoyed you. They enjoyed you. Anytime you have 30 to 50 people stay for over 2 hours and, you know, keep staying, be in there.
Like, wow, yeah. Yep.
They're like, I'm not leaving.
Yeah. They was like, no, I got to hear this. What happened next?
Right. So I appreciate you, love. You all follow both of us. If you want to tap Ladybird, the drop down menu, it should have both of our names. Follow. If my name is not there, then tap the comment, pin comment. It'll give you the option to click follow.
Yeah, and my link on my Instagram page gives you all my social medias like Facebook. Yeah. And everywhere I'm at on social media, because I'm literally probably on Facebook more than Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you told me that.
I'm always on Clubhouse. I'm addicted to Clubhouse.
I'm over Clubhouse, but I will say this: on her profile, she has her links. On my profile, the link tree will tell you how to purchase Just One Thing, as well as Facebook, IG, everything you need to know about Chartown Entertainment. Even one of my most riveting interviews recently, it was a shocker. I mean, not as beautifully shocking and, you know, introspective as this, but he's the one with 24 kids, 20 baby mamas, young rapper, and you need to watch that interview. So I put that link up there. That's the only interview that's linked up there. Meanwhile, there's been 150 something interviews as of tonight. Ms. Burgess is my 159th. My 150th was Raheem Devon. That's the homie. I've known him before. Yeah, probably before he had a career. So that's on my page somewhere. Otherwise, if you have trouble finding on IG, click on the YouTube link. Subscribe to Chartown ENT. I'm Chartown ENT on all platforms: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, everything. Same thing you see down here is same thing on all those platforms. So Raheem Devon was 150. Malik Youssef, the week after.
Oh my God.
Yes. I'll be bringing them out. I'll be bringing them out, sis.
Let me tell you. So, Char, when I first got diagnosed, I met Raheem when I first got diagnosed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I met him on social media just as a fan.
Okay, got you. Okay.
Everybody who always like, I met Raheem, Steve, that was his backup singer at the time. Mm-hmm. Malik Youssef, all of them. I met all of them. And so I was like a part of the crew. Raheem was one of the first people that I told my status to that wasn't like family. Okay. So he's known, like, I've known him since like 2008. When I met him. He's a sweetheart.
We met probably about 25 years ago before he had a career.
Yeah.
And so most of the people.
Still a little teeny bopper.
Yes, most of the people I have on my shows, I've had 159 as of tonight, over 250 men on It Is What It Is, How Men Think on Facebook. I'm on hiatus right now. We're going to have season 5 start in January, but the over 400 guests, what I'm saying, over 400 guests over the last 2 years. And so everybody from Men at Large to Raheem Devon, George Wallace, Tony Rock, Ali Sadiq, multi-platinum producers, Drew Hill, all 7 of them, old and new, came on for my birthday in June. We had a good time talking about love, life, relationship, uncut.
You pulled Woody out.
No, Woody hasn't been a member for over 20 years, but he is a friend. He hasn't been a member for over 20 years. They combined another R&B group. They brought back Scola and Teo is still the group.
Original. I don't know none of the new people.
Okay, yeah, Black and oh my God, what's the other one? I can't think. 7 of them now. But it's Black and I can't think of his name right now. But anyway, all of them were on with me for my birthday on June 14th. So that was a dope interview. If you look at the top of my IG page, there's a clip of me asking them if they've ever been rejected. You know? So I ask everything. You know, they leave the titles at the door. So the entertainers come through. I ask a little bit of everything. They are not whoever y'all, you know, buy tickets for when they come on my platform. It's just some guys talking about love, life, relationships. That's the dopeness of my platform. And so, but yeah, it's been a lot, you know. And so I was going to say Malik Youssef was the 100th episode. And it was the week, he said yes, the week after he and Kanye were nominated for Album of the Year last year and had just, I think, launched that Donda tour where they were renting out arenas. So I was so honored. He's a dear friend, you know, but God's been good. 50 was Rodney Perry, but in between have been some amazing people from, you know, Eric Nolan Grant from the OJs to the East Side Boys to, you know, Men at Large. So many people have come through. Then I've had the woman who had 44 brothers and sisters, 4 mothers, and 1 father, grew up in a cult. I've had some amazing shows. That's what I'm telling you in the last 159 episodes. Y'all come watch these episodes.
Yeah, I've caught a few of them. So yeah, I know. Yeah.
You know, so I enjoy it because I enjoy hearing people's journeys because it connects who we are. You know, sometimes we look at social media and think we're so different. You know, people think my clients, and I've even had some of the Mayweather brothers on who, you know, I work with the Mayweathers, Floyd Jr., Floyd Sr., Roger, rest in peace, and Jeff. So, you know, talking about that Mayweather, the legacy, Jeff was on talking about how I met them inadvertently or ironically. I met Jeff last, so he's the baby of the Mayweather brothers. But he came on talking about how I met with his brothers and how I met with his nephew and, you know, how I represent them at the World Boxing Coalition and all of that. Yeah. So I've had a beautiful, sorted career. So now, in addition to still working with clients, I'm highlighting. You know, I want people to know the stories. You know, in my back of my mind, I always thought when I would, you know, be on tour or whatever with my clients, I would introduce them like that, or I would say this. And now I get to introduce the way I think they need to be introduced. You know, ask them the questions I think they should have always been asked. You know, and so y'all join me, click the follow my sis, Lady Burgess, and and support her journey, buy that book. Thank you all for helping my book, Just One Thing, sell out 4 times nationally. Working on 5 right now. Thank you for the other countries, Dubai and South Africa, Germany and Italy, who have also been, you know, extremely supportive of my book. I appreciate you guys. And so I will talk to y'all later. I will be back. When am I going to be back? I think I got shows that I'm going to Thursday and Friday. So I might not be back this week, but Monday I have, they calling him the second coming of Barry White. Y'all got to hear his voice. And he's a major saxophone player. He's going to be with me Monday talking about his career, his new album with some legends like Lenny Williams. And got some more good ones coming. I don't have the whole list in my brain, but we got some good ones coming up. So y'all got to hear his voice. First time he called me, I was like, wait a minute, sir. So y'all got to hear him. His name is Jay Henry.
Jay Henry.
Yes. So if you Google him, you will see. Yes. Well, I mean, I wasn't ready because I saw him through one of my sisters, Coco Brown, you know, from Tyler Perry movies and all that. And I saw him on live with her. And so we had just like gotten a chance to talk for 3 hours a couple nights before, you know, because I've known Coco forever. And he was on there. So I didn't really get a chance to hear him. You know, I was just passing through. But I think I sent him a request and said, you know, congratulations on your project, and kept it moving. Or he hit me up and said something. I don't remember. I think, no, I followed him because I said, I want to see what project this is. And I kept it moving. I didn't listen to the interview or the conversation. He wrote me and introduced himself. And he said, I would love to do on your platforms. And I said, okay. And so then he called because I had questions because I couldn't figure out, is he a sax player? Is he a singer? What is he? And I would Google him and all kinds of stuff was coming up.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so he was like, oh. I was like, wait a minute, sir. I mean, I can't even talk or even imitate how low his voice was. And they did a remake of Secret Garden. So he had sent me all of this information, all this music and everything I'm supposed to be listening to. And I told him the other day, I said, I'm going to listen to it. It's been crazy busy, but I got all this stuff to listen to. And I told him, I said, one of my babies, Omar Wilson, just did a remake with my buddy Raheem Devon, Sean Stockman. Naturally, I know Cisco. And theirs is killing it. Got millions and millions of views, you know, and that video was everything. I was like, This was for Omar's debut album, you know, and so to call in the legends to come to remake a legendary song, I was like, you're bold somebody. I love you.
They did it, though. They did it.
They did it. They did that thing. And so I was like, now I got to hear your rendition of Secret Garden. And he told me it's something nice. So I got to hear that. And he sent me a couple other songs. But anyway, he's going to be with me Monday, ladies. So y'all just tune in and y'all hear that voice. Y'all not going to leave once you hear the voice. I'm trying to tell you right now. And the fella's going to be sitting there practicing. So y'all not going to leave either. Like, y'all going to try to get it down there because it's something sexy. So y'all join me Monday.
Listen Monday. I'm going to have to come listen.
Yes, 9 o'clock. All my shows from now on, I used to have 8 and 9. All shows are going to be 9 o'clock from now on. You know, and I got some really amazing guests coming up. Tonight was insane. I enjoyed this woman. I enjoyed her testimony. I did this. And so congratulations, blessings, prayers, uplifting. You need it all. And I'm bestowing it upon you. Greatness, even more greatness. So thank you, love.
My baby says she want to say something before we go.
Oh, let me see the baby. I love the kids.
You got to lean over. Now you shy.
Let me see your face. I know you hear me.
You can say good night.
Say hi to me.
Hi. You just want to say hi? Well, you got to come in the camera.
Let me see your smiling face. Just real quick. Real quick. Let me see your face. I'm smiling. You come on and smile.
Come on. You always on the camera. All of a sudden now you don't want to be on the camera. Yeah, you got to sit up. Come over.
I see pretty hair. I love your hair. I saw the little glasses. Oh, aren't you cute? Aren't you cute? How are you?
Say good night.
Good night, love.
Yeah, we're really going to go night now.
That's your little twin. That's who that is.
No. All right.
But anyway, I'm going to go get some dinner. I know it sounds upside down, but I didn't get up till 4:30 today. So I'm going to go some dinner. And I'm going to work all night.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you too. And it was a pleasure finally matching the name with the face and the voice and everything else. Thank you so much for honoring my platform and continued prayers and blessings on everything you touch, love.
You too. And good night.
Okay, have a good night. Bye-bye.